Hey, what's happening, everybody? Welcome to the Pocket Razors channel, and welcome to another Pocket Talk. Tonight, we have another very special guest with us. He's another young channel that's just started out here recently, similar to the Pocket Razors channel here, and he has so graciously agreed to come in and share his EDC and knife life story with us. So, without further ado, let's get this thing flipped on over here, and let's welcome Sharp Guy ATX. Mr. Dennis, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, Mark. Thanks for having me.
You betcha. Well, thank you for being here, my friend. Thank you for being here.
My
So,
pleasure.
you bet. Just kind of a brief mention there. Just a quick little backstory on it. We've seen each other in and around the chats and stuff like that for a number of years now, and
Yes.
and I think a little hi, how are yous and stuff like that. But didn't really start to kind of get to know you or the channel until I was researching kind of time slots to when I wanted to try to come and do my lives. But before we even got that started, and noticed that you were doing some Tuesday night lives and was checking that out on the schedule, and realized that you had just recently started a channel as well. I think that, what have you got? About 15 or 16 lives under your belt at this point now?
Yeah, I think we're getting ready to do number 16.
Congratulations, my man. Congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you. Back at you.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's been a wonderful learning experience, and boy, this community that we find ourselves in, what a warm, loving bunch of guys and gals they are. So,
Oh, and it's funny because my introduction into this group, you've talked about it in your first two podcasts about people during the pandemic, reached
hmm
out and needed something, or what have you. And that was actually, really kind of was my thing too. I was during the pandemic. I was doing a lot of fishing,
right,
and I realized that I didn't have a pocket knife. As silly as it sounds,
right.
I didn't have a good pocket knife. I had a fillet knife.
hmm
I had a lot of things I could cut line with, but I didn't have a good pocket knife. I had a piece of junk that I probably picked up for $10. Looked like a Gerber paraframe. And so I got online and I started researching pocket knives. Okay, what kind of pocket knife do I want? Well, I want something that's going to fit my hand, and something kind of big, and something that I can deploy with one hand. And um, I ended up finding an artisan, and I still have it. I'll never get rid of it.
Right.
But it's it's just a big old chunky paraframe looking
hmm
artisan. It's called the Hover Wing.
Right.
And after I ordered the knife, I got online and I wanted to see if there was any reviews on said knife.
hmm
And I just kind of fell into this hole. And there was a lot more than rabbits in there, but man, I fell into the hole deep.
Right.
But it was funny because the guy that I found was Big Red.
Okay.
And he was doing this thing where he was opening these mystery boxes. I don't know if you remember when he was
I
opening the
do.
general's boxes from SMKW.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was cool. I was a baseball card kid back when I was younger, so opening packs was like, the surprise. So he kind of caught me with that. But somebody else had a couple people had reviews of the knife. So I didn't realize it at the time, but this would become a vicious cycle that I would get into where I would, do a little research, sometimes not so much research, buy a knife,
Right.
but then in the 3, 4, 5 days it takes for it to arrive in the mailbox, I'm on YouTube watching every other person's, review of it. And that's just kind of become my MO. That's
Right.
kind of what I do now. But it's really amazing that, you've talked about it with the guys. And I think that's really when they really started well, Zach was already kind of a thing, but JB was really starting to blow up around the time the pandemic hit.
Right.
And it's been a really amazing trip. And one of the connections that I made with JB and Zach, and that's where Zach came in with his DSKFS.
Right.
So it's no secret if you watch my my lives and some of my stuff. I make a lot of fun of the fact that I've been married 3 times. Um, but more than one of my wives have said that I was far too generous of an individual. And the way I was raised, there's no such thing, you know. I
Right.
mean, if you have, you share, you know, whatever. But seeing this community where there's all these guys that are just giving and they didn't expect anything in return, I was just kind of like, wow, this is like a
Right.
really amazing environment. And then you get into these chats and you see it's not just about winning a pocket knife or a bag of swag. You know, you see something happen in the community and then you watch this community come together and embrace whoever or whatever the situation is.
Yeah.
And that's when I knew I was home. I was like, yeah, this is more than just a hobby. This is a community of people who, yeah, we have a few things in common, but the humanity of it, I think, is kind of what drew me in.
Hmm.
And those two guys, I mean, that's humanity right there. I mean, you just saw a couple weekend before last. You know, JB was having a rough time, and he decided to go ahead and do his show. But
Yeah.
I also know that that brings him so much joy
Hmm.
that there was probably, and he was being honest, and a lot of people might not have bought it, but there was nothing else that he probably would have rather have been doing at that time than doing his live.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
And I
and
think anybody
that's
that's
just
got to
JB.
know, yeah, it is. It is. And I think anybody that's gotten to know him, boy, anybody that questions, well, him or Zach, either one of them, since we're kind of talking about both of them, anybody that questions their integrity or their intents on what they do really doesn't know them, you know.
Right.
And you know, I feel very fortunate to have developed friendships with them. And the more you get to know them, they're the same people, you know, away as they are what you see. You know, they're
Exactly.
not putting on a show. And you know, and I think oh, what was it? A day or two ago, he did a quick check-in, and he, you know, and he so much said that, you know, guys, thank you, and that really helped pick me up. And boy, I'll tell you what, that guy loves to give away stuff more than anything else, and I totally get it, you know. And to be quite honest, I wasn't sure going into starting to do the lives how quick giveaways were going to come into the equation, and just because of the kind kickoff that Zach helped with my channel, and you know, we reached an amazing goal right out of the box, I kind of had to step up and say, well, I said we'd do it, and we're going to give away a knife on the first live if we got there, and we did. And I'll tell you what, the instant that you do that first giveaway, it's like I instantaneously knew what they were talking about, you know. And when
Yeah.
they're talking about liking and giving stuff away, and it isn't, I don't think it's so much giving or getting, um, personally, and maybe you can speak to this too. I think it's just that community spirit that we're talking about. You know, it's that
Yeah.
camaraderie, and it's just enjoying seeing it. How many times do you see somebody talking about, oh, look at that awesome knife, or this is on the counter, I'm going to win that, I'm going to win that, I'm going to win that, only to see when they put their guess in, they're guessing for somebody else.
That's right.
You know what I mean? And I think that is such a cool thing that you see out there. People trying to hook other people up. You know, people that are
So
down. Yep.
I've got something really cool that's happened to me.
Uh huh.
So I've been on a lucky streak. Now, when I say I've been on a lucky streak, my lucky streak started last July, the day before Independence Day.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they did a quintuple bypass on my heart.
Okay.
And then they also cleaned out both of my carotid arteries. And it was funny because the doc was kind of a funny guy.
Mm-hmm.
And he came in to explain what they were going to do. And he's like, well, he goes, we're kind of on a skeleton crew here on the holiday weekend. So if you live through us cleaning out your carotid arteries, we're going to go ahead and do a quintuple bypass and take this, piece of vein out of your leg. And he went through the whole thing. But he was a funny guy. But anyway, so I get out of the hospital and the community is just like, embracing me and
Mm-hmm.
taking me in. But I went on this winning streak and I had retired from my job. I was in transportation for over 30 years. I had started going to college. I want to get my bachelor's degree.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd been going to school for about 2 months and I have a heart attack and end up having this bypass. Well, over the next 5 or 6 months, I'm not kidding you, I went on a tear where I was winning and winning and winning. I mean, I've won on, and this is a big one. I mean, I've won on Metal Complex. You know how many people show up for one of his lives when he's doing giveaways?
Oh,
I
they're
mean,
huge.
that's a
Yeah,
big giveaway.
it
So
is.
I've got my metal complex here. I won from Lefty. I won from KC. I've got my rabbit here. And this all happened as I was recovering and I was pretty broke, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
But to explain how much that, meant to me, after I won this in January, I decided that for the rest of 2024 that I was going to give away anything that I win in a live. So I'm going to play for other people.
Nice.
So almost instantly, within the first couple of weeks, I win a $300 Ferrum Forge, and I gifted that to somebody in the community. And then a couple weeks later on Zach's live, I picked the number. In fact, I picked the right number 2 weeks in a row on Zach's live, and I won a Benchmade. What's the little one?
Well, there's a couple of minis. There's a mini bug out. There's a mini
The
nine.
bug out.
Yep, mini bug
I,
out. Okay.
it wasn't a mini; it was a full size bug out.
Okay.
But one of the guys, right as they drew my name, I looked down at the chat, and somebody was announcing that they had a birthday, and everyone was saying happy birthday to him. And I was just like, what the heck? Bug out's
Right.
not my cup of tea. I've tried one; it's not my cup
Yeah.
of tea. So, pay it
There you
forward.
go.
So
Absolutely.
DSKFS. So then I got done with March, and I kind of didn't really hit anything. And I was like, okay, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to, because I started the channel,
Right.
I need content. So if I win anything, I want them to send it to me and then I'll give it away. So I decided at the end of June and then at the end of each 3 months for the rest of the year, I'll do a giveaway of anything that I've won. And then I get a chance to review it for the channel and then I can give it all away.
Yeah.
So I already have a knife in there, a Miguron Valona, that was modded by Josh Branson. That's going to go into the one at the end of June. And then
Nice.
tonight, I won a little swag pack and a little pouch from the Donut Community Boys. So I'll
Very
throw
cool.
that in. So we've already got a nice little collection going for the June giveaway.
Yeah.
And I get a little content out of the deal.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Isn't it funny how your brain starts to think like that as soon as you start to record stuff, and you need to think, oh, what am I going to do next week now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's funny. I've never been never been one that's very lucky, in the sense of like winning contests, giveaways, or things like that. I mean, a few times in my life here or there, but I'm generally that person that's like, yeah, I'll put an entry in there, but there's no way I'm going to win it. And
Yeah.
you meet those people that just generally are lucky, and it's like you can almost count on them. If there's a contest, they're going to win it. That's not been me. And so for giveaways for long time, I'd throw a number up, and quite honestly, I wasn't that concerned with whether or not I was going to gift it to anybody or not, because I didn't feel like I had a chance in heck, of getting her done.
Winning.
And quite honestly, I was usually way out of it. It was like if they were guessing in the threes, I was guessing in the fives, So I was usually that far away. And my first giveaway win that I ever won was actually gifted to me. And it was in Women Carries Knife. Christine's live stream was in there watching her and Peter, and it was JB, Big Red EDC, and it was shortly after the Workshop meetup that we'd kind of put together. Zach and I'd put together down here, and I never did ask him, but I think it was like, hey, Pocket Razors just did that, threw that in there, and I won that. And I was like, holy crap, that's cool, and thanks, and got all the goodies and whatnot, and
Yep.
and was on the receiving end of it. And quite honestly, my winning streak didn't just kind of stop there. And fast forward another year or so, and then the second giveaway I got was also gifted to me. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I get it. I'm just going to start guessing for other people. And you know what? When I
Yeah.
started guessing for other people, I actually started to win.
Yeah.
And so since then, I've actually, won, and other people have benefited from giveaways more than I ever have got it. The only one giveaway that I've ever put in, and kept it because I wanted it was Casey on Nice Fast, and it was on one of his
Yeah.
Mondays. And his kids, I love how he includes his kids on that channel, And Ashlyn does her Killer Bunny, and Trevor does the little blue knives,
Yep.
and those were in there. I was like, I've always wanted some of those. Right there, you go. I should have pulled mine out. Yep. But I've got them in the drawer back here, and then they are in the collection. They are permanent. And then the Kubi Dust Devil was also in there with those
Nice.
ugly. I'm not a yellow Ultim fan. I'm just not. I just don't like the color. Um, and it was like, oh wow, okay, and a knife's coming with yellow Ultim scales on it. Holy crap! I got there, opened that thing up, put that thing in my hands, like I forgot about the color. That's a damn good knife, and it just felt good in the hands. But no, that's the only one that and I fully do intend to keep it, but no, it's interesting how the giveaways and how they get traded around. It really does. Zach really nailed it on the head when he kind of came up with that hashtag DSKFS,
Yeah.
and it's amazing how, from what I can see, almost everybody in the community has adopted it in some form or another. And I
Yeah.
know that we were talking it out. I says, dude, unless you got restrictions, you know, it's like I fully intend to continue blowing this up right from day one, and going to make it a regular part of my channel. And I think so many others have too. And that's a testament to him as just such a kind human. So, but yeah, that's awesome.
That's a fact.
Yeah, yeah. So,
That's a
well, that's
fact. Well,
yeah.
and the funny thing, back in the early days, um, I won a, what was it? It was a little, one of those little tiny runt fives.
Right. The yeah. Uh-huh.
I think other than stuff I've given away, that's the only thing that I actually accepted as a giveaway prize from Zach, because it was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
But when I got it, I was like, this is like, number one, way too small for me, and number two, way too snappy for being as small as it is. And I was kind of bummed that I didn't get a Benchmade from Zach, Benchmade guy, right?
Yeah.
Well, young Mr. Brandt, Hinder Collector
Mm-hmm.
42,
Yep.
he and I were chatting one night, and he was like, I've got this really old lockback Benchmade. He's like, what do you have to trade? And I was like, I got this Runt 5. So by proxy, I ended up getting a Benchmade out of the deal,
Yeah.
and it was a good swap.
Via Zach stuff
And
in a roundabout sort of way.
in a
Nice.
roundabout sort of
Yeah.
way.
Nice.
And
Yeah.
I had my boy. It had no clip on it, and I was gonna send it in. Then I was like, I think one of those large clip slips from Lancelot Leather would work perfect. And I had him send me one, and it was just perfect. So
Yeah.
I can just slide that thing right in the pocket. Don't need a clip for it at all, and it's a cool little knife.
Nice. Very cool.
It was that. I got another funny story with
Uh-huh.
JB. So this has been 2 Christmases ago. No, this has been 3 Christmases ago. So he was doing that 12 Days of Christmas thing that he does.
Okay.
And he did the initial drawing, and all the knives were given away. And I didn't win, and I was cool with it. I'm fortunate. I'm a very happy man.
Mm-hmm.
But then I had this knife, and my nephew showed up, and he was cooking dinner for my mom and myself around the holidays, and I didn't have a gift for him. And I was like, I know he fishes, so I had this cool little, excuse me,
Yeah.
fixed blade. It was a little Bergen trout made by CRKT. And
Okay.
it was a nice one. I'd had one previous and it rusted a lot, but this one was really nice. And it was kind of something that I liked, but I was like, this is perfect. Because if I want to keep it, I know it's something good and I know he'll like it. So I gave it to him. Well, fast forward about 10 days, and whoever had won package number 11 failed to claim it. So JB drew again, and once they did the drawing, my name came up. And I was like, great, this is awesome. Well, that same knife that I gave away happened to be the number one prize. That was the grand prize in his giveaway.
Oh,
So
really?
randomly, nobody claims number 11. He sends it to me. I open it up, and it's the exact same knife that I gave to my nephew when he came over and cooked for us on Christmas. So it was meant for me to have that Bergen
Absolutely.
trout for sure.
Yeah. Well, whether you call it karma, whether you call it dumb luck, whether you call it coincidence, isn't it funny how life just seems to kind of sort of make things fall into place and make stuff right when it's meant to be. So
Absolutely.
Yep. 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 So that's cool, and that's why I love the chance to sit down and do this with those guys, with you, with others. Is to hear these wonderful stories and whatnot, and to hear the stories about how we got here,
Yeah,
and how did Dennis get to become Sharp Guy ATX, and then how did Sharp Guy ATX begin to start a channel? Have knives, EDC been a thing all of your life? Just a recent thing? I think most of us probably go back into our childhoods a little bit, whether or not
yeah,
we became collectors or enthusiasts or knowledgeable about it or not. But when it comes right down to it, most knives and EDC items are generally just tools. They're just daily
right.
tools that we use throughout our life. So, um, tell us a little bit of that. What's your story? Where did you kind of get started with your first knives and your EDC stuff, and how did you go from getting just to being get a regular deal to it becoming a passion, and
Sure.
would love to hear your story, Dennis, and however much or however little of it you want to share with us.
You got it.
Yeah.
So, mom and dad both came from Northeast Montana.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the earliest memories I have is my granddad. He would always sit at the kitchen table. He always had the AM radio on when he was sitting there, and
Mm-hmm.
he actually wore a path in the carpet between the coffee pot and his chair. And when I really started being around him, he was retired from the railroad. But one of the things I remember was he would always be sitting at the table working that buck pocket knife.
Right.
And he always had that pocket knife in his pocket, and he'd always have it. I mean, he wore the metal off of that thing after 30, 40 years. But he was
Right.
a hunter and a fisherman. And because dad being in the Navy, um, I picked up on the fishing a lot more than the hunting. The hunting wasn't really my thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Tried it when I was younger. I still have the gun that I learned to shoot on when I was a kid.
Right.
But in the fishing, by my dad being in the Navy, we were always around water of some kind.
Right.
So there was always in the tackle box, a fillet knife. So we were always around knives on that level.
Mm-hmm.
But my first knife, I was at the Blaine County Fair. We were passing through Montana and we stopped in to visit Grandma and Grandpa. And we were at the Blaine County Fair up there in Northeast Montana. And there was one of those coin pusher machines. And right on the edge of this coin pusher machine on the corner, there was a Barlow knife, a yellow Delrin Barlow knife.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that I had to have that Barlow knife. So I dropped about $2 in quarters into that machine. And sure enough, that Barlow knife fell off down into the little, collection plate. And I grabbed it out. And I kept waiting for the guy behind the counter to tell me that I wasn't old enough to have it, but he didn't. So I stuck it in my pocket and I kept on going.
Yeah.
Well, the funny thing is I also kept it in my pocket and didn't tell my mom and dad about it because I was just certain that they were going to take it away from me.
It sounds like a little boy
Well,
mentality to me. I'm very familiar
exactly.
with this kind of thinking, right?
So probably about a week later, we're at a KOA campground and we were headed to Washington State, I believe, for my dad's next station. And my pop saw me take it out of my pocket. And like I said, I thought for sure it was a goner. But I got about a 15-minute lesson in how to take care of it and how to be safe with it. And they let me keep the pocket knife. So I was like, all right,
Yeah.
this was
Yeah.
pretty cool. Well, shortly after that, I joined the Scouts and I upgraded that to a really nice case Boy Scout pocket knife.
Right.
Um, and we somehow ended up back in Maine. And this changed my pocket knife preferences for quite a few years. But that same Boy Scout case pocket knife, we were up blueberry hunting up on the fire roads up outside of the base housing, and this is in central Maine.
Okay.
It was a naval air station, but we had just nothing but wilderness, and we were on our way back down the hill, and I was messing around with the knife, and it had some serious walk and talk, and it closed on my thumbnail,
Ooh, ouch.
and it cut clean through the thumbnail. Well, the first place you come to when you come off the fire road is the fire station, right as you come into the neighborhood from the fire road. So we stopped in there, and these old boys had a good time poking fun at me and everything, but they got me all cleaned up, and they said it was a nice clean cut. It should heal up pretty good, but the nail
Right.
is going to fall apart. So it was what it was. But after that, I didn't carry a traditional pocket knife until probably 2 or 3 years ago.
Okay.
Um, I switched over to lockback, and I carried a buck 110 for years and
Right.
years. Even once I started driving a truck, I always had, because it was just a rough and tough big knife that, and they weren't expensive. And that was probably, a big part of the reason why it stayed in my pocket as often as it did. But I drove a truck for 25 years, and you have to cut a lot of, lines, and, things are wrapped up in stuff, and
Right.
a lot of plastic wrap. So there's a lot of stuff, but you're pretty rough on those knives.
Yeah.
Um, but most of my stuff, as far as knives went, was in my tackle box. And as we were coming up to the time when 2020, when everything changed,
Mm-hmm.
um, I was looking for a new knife. I had some knives, and I was really into fishing. Um, I was fishing on the river out in front of downtown Austin, the lower Colorado,
Okay.
4 or 5 mornings a week. So I had probably 5 or 6 tackle boxes, and when I say tackle boxes, I'm talking like these big giant things that have like 6 cases in each one.
Yeah, you got the big
Um,
Plano monsters. Yeah.
I was like mystery tackle box guy. I had 17 of every color that was popular or
Right.
whatever. And I had a great time. I mean, it was fun getting down on the water, doing the kayaking every morning, and you saw a lot of people down there, doing their paddleboarding routines and yoga on the paddle boards and everything. Very Austin-y thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it was kind of the weirdest setting for fishing that I've ever been in, because literally you're on this river that runs right through downtown, and there's all these high-rise buildings, and Austin's been growing so much, and I was just like, all of a sudden the pandemic hit, and all of my secret fishing spots were all just swarmed with people who didn't have anything better to do than go fishing because everybody was at home.
Yeah.
So once everybody swarmed on my fishing spots, I didn't want to be there because there was too many people there. So it's kind of funny that I was looking for a fishing knife, and like I said, I found that artisan,
Mm-hmm.
and then I started watching the shows, and then I signed up for. It wasn't through Smoky Mountain Knife Works. The first mystery box I signed up for was an SHTF box, and it was through one of the companies that sells like fantasy swords and stuff.
Okay.
And most of it was junk. I mean, literally junk. So then, once I signed up for this generals box through SMKW, I mean, there was a little bit of stuff on the lower end, but there was stuff on the higher end. And that was like what really started opening up my mind to what could be, because,
Mm-hmm.
like I said, I'd carried a buck 110 for, 25 years while I was, in the trucking industry. Now I've switched over, and I'm kind of doing limo and black car kind of stuff. So I need something a little slimmer and a little more sleek and a little bit more, gentlemanly.
Right.
And so that kind of opened up a little bit of that, because I ended up getting a CEO in
Okay.
one of those boxes. And I
Right.
was like, well, that's cool. I never would have bought that. That's something different. Well, then you start getting into the community, and I wouldn't say you start getting more involved in the influencers, but you start seeing more of the behind the scenes stuff that's going on, and the little bit of the this is better than that, and this is where you should, the grumpy people. I've even seen a couple people get under JB's skin and Zach's skin a few times, and they both did excellent jobs of handling it. I don't know if I would have done as well as they did, but keeping it kind of on topic, I
Mm-hmm.
think, is one of the things that I really love about the community.
Right.
Is, yeah, we'll kind of drift a little bit, but it's never anything, like going over and getting involved in a, debate on Twitter or anything like that.
Right.
It's usually pretty chill and laid back. And I was kind of like, I really dig that. But going back to that general's box, that's something that I think really helped me develop which direction I was going to go with my collecting, was because I had an opportunity to try a bunch of different things.
Right.
And I've given away a bunch of the stuff, already. But there's a lot of stuff that I kept, and a lot of the stuff that I really started, like for instance, that first Barlow when I was
Right.
10 years old.
Hmm.
I have a Barlow collection now,
Right.
and my Barlow collection ranges from Rough Rider and even some stuff that's probably lower on the chain than Rough Rider, because there was a couple of novelty Barlows that I picked up somewhere. But all the way up to I've got a couple GECs, and that was another one that I almost jumped into last year, was that rabbit hole of the GECs, and then I stopped myself and I was like, that's an expensive rabbit hole right there. It
It
doesn't take
really
you
is.
long to jump down some of them. You realize real quick. But I found a group called the Barlow Bearcat Club, and the guy who runs this, Knife Thoughts, I think is what he goes by on Instagram and on YouTube.
Uh-huh.
But he is a historian when it comes to the Barlow knife. He just chose that one, and it interested him so much that he decided, you know what? I need to find a bunch of people who are like-minded about this particular knife. And so I got involved with that group, and that group has been really cool because there really is a lot of history. And I haven't bought a lot of knives, but I've learned a lot.
Hmm.
And sometimes that value right there, maybe down the road I'll go down that rabbit hole. Um, but I've got a couple of really nice. I got one of their club knives, which is a Beerlow Barlow,
Right.
really cool deal. So that's the high end. But I've also got Bokers, Barlows from Germany that are really, really nice.
Nice.
And then the other thing that I started doing here, since I've been kind of broke for the last couple, 6 or 8 months, is I started hunting on eBay for knives that maybe needed a little bit of TLC.
Right.
And a lot of these clearinghouses, they don't want to mess with them. And I'd say one out of every four is probably a piece of junk that I can't do anything with. But the other three, end up in the collection. And I've ended up with some really, really good ones. I ended up with a USA made Colonial Barlow from the 70s, Granddaddy Barlow that's in perfect shape, for 25 bucks. And something like that, when you look at some of the Winchesters that they're making, USA made now, those are 200 bucks easy just to start.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's been kind of fun. And then I've also started watching Knife Delights, and I believe that's he does some refurbishing and stuff. So some of the stuff that's a little rough around the edges, I've been watching other people from the community who like to do this and who do this more regularly, refurbish knives, and I've even gotten into doing a little bit of that.
Yeah.
So I got into the Barlows. So I knew I liked the Barlows. The other thing that kind of stuck with me was, and it's funny how this happens. That first knife was that yellow Delrin knife,
Right.
and so this one kind of looks orange. It's butterscotch,
Oh yeah, you were showing that off the other night a little bit.
but this
Yeah.
is the first custom that I've ever purchased. And the cool thing is this guy Scott at Edgy Blade Works. He just took you through the whole. I mean, through the whole deal. I mean, there's pictures of the metal before he even put the stencil on it. Um, the That was really fun. Um, I had to save up quite a while to be able to do that, and if I'd gone down that rabbit hole with GEC, I never would have got to that point.
Right.
But the funniest thing is I had a $500 knife. It was a Riot that I won from Knife Rights, and I ended up trading that knife away because I couldn't carry it. It was so expensive. I stressed myself out, and I didn't want to put it in my pocket because I was afraid I was going to lose it.
Yeah.
But this knife I've been carrying every day. I don't know what it is, but I've gotten over my fear of carrying an expensive knife. Because everything I had in my collection was like less than 300 bucks. I mean, I think the most expensive knife I had was maybe a a SOCOM Elite or a Benchmade Optimus. Um, and I was fine carrying those. In fact, I recently lost that Benchmade. Went back on that path that I was on 3 times, thinking I was going to find that knife, but no luck. But the
Look,
cool
look,
thing about
look,
that,
look under your seat and look under your jack. The jack that's under your seat in your car or your truck. I think one of our friendly acquaintances, JB, found a long lost knife. What was it, last week or the week before?
yeah.
He just
Well,
happened to be under there and found that thing tucked into that jack.
and I know you guys touched on it, but it's worth repeating. Once again, he lost that knife, and the community came together and bombed his
Yeah,
live with donations so that he could get a replacement for it.
yeah,
And I
yeah.
mean that's the giving back. That's the karma you're talking about right there.
Absolutely, absolutely. And and so far, I think everybody that I've ever talked specifically to about it, or since the Pocket Talks and since the channel have been out for a few weeks now and stuff like that, some people have reached out. And quite honestly, there was a time a few years ago where I felt, because for me to ever get into a live stream of any kind, to like literally click in and want to get in and get on a keyboard and type and chat, it just wasn't my thing. I did AOL a few decades ago and had chat rooms and stuff like that. And it was kind of like, that was just, it wasn't something I did on a computer, And when I click into that first Knife Rides Live, just to see what was going on, and this is, I came for the knife because I was literally an awful lot like you. I was on YouTube. I was just looking for new modern style folding knives, which, believe it or not, I was totally oblivious to. A little bit different than you. I'd always carried some real traditional stuff, including little tiny Schrade old timer, just 2 and 3 blade knives, and that was my primary carry for decades.
Yeah,
And I was researching some other stuff, but I literally at one point thought I came for the knife and I stayed for the conversation.
yeah,
And at the time it was just a conversation, and that was that conversation that now, if you've watched any of the previous Pocket Talks and any of my channel content, Jack and Zach, excuse me, I can't talk. Zach and JB were those two guys that were talking when I clicked into that first live. And it was the interaction between them and the very apparent friendship that they had, and the kindness that they both had, and what they were trying to do, and how the people in that conversation, in that chat, were responding. And to be honest with you, I remember trying to figure out, okay, if I type this and I hit that button, is it going to blow up? If I say something, if I say hi, what's going to happen? And sure as crap, I managed to get a message out there, and nothing blew up. And pretty soon, people were that had no flipping clue and I don't even think it was Pocket Razor. I think it was probably, my old handle I used that was based on my first name. They had no clue who I was, but there they were, reaching out, welcome, thanks for being here. It's like, holy crap, they're talking to me. It's like,
yeah,
what's going on here? And and I think that's what gets us. And I've had so many people in the past month or two reach out, and whether it's in a comment on a video or in an email message or an Instagram message, hey, I came for the knife and I stayed for the community and the conversation too, and it's like, right on. And I love getting that feedback, and that's kind of where the whole concept with Pocket Talk, when I talked it out initially with Zach and JB, who I spitballed all my channel ideas off of before we even decided to do it. And it was just like, I think that there's a lot of guys like me out there that want to hear these stories. We're
yeah,
missing years of information on some of you guys, and and so far, that's very much been the case. I mean, there are people that I see come into the Pocket Talks or come into the lives or whatever, and I'm sitting there thinking, holy crap, this dude's this I don't know this dude, but he's been around forever, and then yet he's sending me those kind of messages, dude.
yeah,
Yeah, I got here the same way. And I think almost all of us probably did. Now that I
yeah,
think about it, and it was just a research, YouTube was very much, I think, a lot of research for a lot of us until we managed to stumble onto this conversation in this community. So, but
Well, and
that's
even with
awesome.
the knives, I wasn't familiar enough with the knives in the beginning. But then as I started listening to JB talk on his lives, I realized that we had something in common. So my dad was Navy for 27 years, and
Right,
although he wasn't in submarines like JB was,
right,
we stopped in Washington State 3 or 4 times, but the base where JB works at as a rigger on those submarines, my dad was stationed at when I was in the 6th and 7th grade.
that's cool.
So I had a newspaper route, and like I mentioned earlier, I
Hmm.
was quite the fisherman.
Right,
And those same submarines that JB works on, loading and unloading, I used to go down to those docks with my fishing pole on my bicycle and fish. And now, apparently, once I started talking to JB, and I didn't realize this because Dad's retired and everything,
right,
but JB says you can't go down there as the public anymore. They haven't allowed the public to go down near the submarines since 9/11 happened.
yeah,
And that didn't even dawn on me because when I was a kid, I mean, every base that we were on, anywhere you could go on your bicycle, unless security came and chased you out, it was fair game.
right,
And that particular base, not only was there the area where JB loads up, but if you go to the center of the base, there was actually like 3 or 4 trout lakes on the base as well.
right,
So he and I instantly started talking, and then you see the hooks on his thumbs. So I was pretty sure he was a fisherman,
right,
So all of a sudden, there's all of this out there for us to have a conversation. So, like you were saying, somebody talked back to you. JB took a minute and he wrote me a paragraph and responded 3 or 4 times back and forth. And like you said, I wasn't a big online guy prior to getting involved in the community. Didn't have a Facebook. I didn't have an Instagram. No, I had a Facebook. I didn't have an Instagram. I didn't have a YouTube or any of that. But I slowly started working through it. And then one of the things that I saw other people doing that I started doing with a lot of the knives that I had built up is I'd see these guys that were starting new channels and I would donate knives to them for their giveaways, for their first 100 or 500 or what
right,
have you. And I happened upon a guy, Jesse McJames. He does a lot of old World War II, Vietnam stuff, but he also does a lot of traditionals and regular, folders as well. But I donated a couple of Uncle Henrys to him for his first giveaway, and it dawned on me at that point, what's keeping me from doing this? I've got plenty of time. I'm going to school right now. I'm not really working. I'm doing a little freelance stuff, but I'm really not working. I've always got guys calling me to ask me if I want to drive somebody to a show or whatever. But for the most part, I've just got school and free time. So I was like,
yeah,
well, why not give it a shot? So I just popped into that spot. I did what you did. I looked online to see if there was any openings. I saw that spot, and at the time, Sharif Manganas was going on after me. So that gave me about an hour after Tri-State got off. So I was like, an hour, that's good because then I can kind of just give myself time to adapt and learn the technology, learn how to use all of the stuff that's available
right,
to be able to make it all look like it's professional and everything. And but I also have gone and watched enough videos now from these guys when they were just starting out, even JB and Metal Complex and Neves Knives, and they were raw just like us,
yeah,
so they were just
yeah,
picking it up and they were just getting their feet wet. So I was like, well, why not? We'll give it a shot. And now I'm on the same page as Matisfaction, which is I need to get myself disciplined to start putting out regular content.
yeah,
And I see these guys putting, some of the guys putting benchmarks that they want to achieve after watching like Metal Complex or these other guys. And I'm a little bit more of I'm going to ease into this a little bit. So
right,
my goal is to get to the point where I'm doing a YouTube video every other day. And I figure that way I've got enough knives going on I could even switch over and do a little bit on some of the restoration work that I'm doing from time to time. Um, I just got rid of my Tormek. I had a big water cooled Tormek T8 grinder,
Right.
and
Yep.
I just wasn't using it. I mean, I paid $1,500 for the thing, and I just wasn't using it. And I was getting much more satisfaction out of, hand sharpening my knives. And it's funny because I was able to learn a lot more about how the different steels feel when I hand sharpen as opposed to when I was sharpening on the wheel. It was a lot harder for me to tell the differences between the harder steels and the softer steels. But when you hand sharpen, I mean, you can really feel the differences once you get used to it.
Yeah.
So,
Isn't that amazing how that's a very tactile kind of a feedback that you get off of that? And I haven't done really much, really any of it on the channel yet, but there's a fair amount of sharpening and stuff like that coming because, quite honestly, that's my therapy.
yeah,
And if I need to, I can sharpen and put an edge on a knife and get it back to work in just a few minutes if I need to. But oftentimes, if I'm going to put something in the sharpener and set it up and do it, and I'm primarily using guided systems now. I mean, I've still got some hand systems and stuff, but I just love to build those edges. And there's something about being able to build such a precise edge, put it where you want to, whether it's right or not, and to do that. But yeah, you take an S90V versus a Bowler 390 versus a 20CV, which is basically the same thing, an M4, a D2, a particle D2, and the way that they feel and how they interact. And I just love as you work them out, you can actually, and this is probably what you're referring to too, is even with you're in a same grid, even a course grid, from where you start to where you're about ready to walk into the next grid, you can feel that in your hands how it's smoothed out.
yeah,
It's following, it's tracking. You've got that plane, and it's just amazing. And some of the steels that I thought would be harder steels, some of the super steels that I thought would maybe be more challenging, I found to be easier
yeah,
than maybe some of the steels that people will refer to as non-super steels or maybe easier steels to sharpen. 154 cm for me sometimes has a really strange feel, and it seems like it takes me a while to move that, like it does even over a 20 CV or something like that.
yeah.
And S90V. Oh man, that stuff is so fun to sharpen, and I just get the most beautiful edges, and it's so silky, silky smooth, you know.
And see, the super steels is what finally got me to get the diamond plates,
Mm-hmm.
and the diamond plates. I'll tell you, you can really, I mean, you can really get some edges going. But
Mm-hmm.
the funny thing is the thing that really made me realize how much that I enjoyed doing the hand sharpening was I started doing some carving, and the carving tools. This has been my little competition with myself.
Mm-hmm.
Is the carving knives? If you strop them regularly,
Mm-hmm.
um, you don't have to sharpen them.
No. Yeah,
And one
agreed.
of the things that I really like to do is see how long I can keep stropping my carving knives before I have to actually go and put them on the on the stone. And it's amazing that once you get that motion down, and I've gotten to the point where I have to like check myself sometimes because I'm dragging that knife towards me, and, kind of got to the point where it's just like a
Yeah.
natural
Yeah.
motion. But natural motions and not paying attention is when people start bleeding.
Yeah,
So I
absolutely.
really had to check myself a couple of times on that because I just get in that zone where it's just like, yeah, baby, here we go, we're doing
Right.
it. But
Yeah.
that same motion, started getting me where I was getting these great edges, but I was struggling on the grinder. And the T8, that's a slow wheel that's water
Right.
cooled.
Right.
So you have to be really patient, actually, to especially when you get to some of the higher HRCs. You have to be patient with it, and if you're not, yeah, you're going to get frustrated and you're going to give up on it. So
Yeah.
I found it to be a really good tool for kitchen knives and scissors. and probably wood turning tools, but
Right.
you know, I wasn't going to start a business with it. And right now, I probably between the stones, and if I really need to take an edge off on something, I've got a work sharp Ken Onion,
Hmm.
and if you put one of those rough belts on there, that'll take some steel off in a heartbeat. So
Yeah.
it'll save you a little bit of time, but I've been getting better with that one. I've been getting better with that one. But yeah, I mean, there's just so many aspects to it. The one I haven't taken on, um, I did a couple of builds. There's a Texas State Surplus store, and at the Texas State Surplus store here in Austin, that's where TSA sends all the knives for the entire state that get confiscated.
Oh, really?
So, so this guy
That's
goes
cool.
in and he picks out all the junk and puts them in the piles, and that's the stuff you see on the internet, eBay. Buy 6 pounds of knives. That's a lot of that junk. But there's also some good stuff. And basically, what this guy does is he goes and does all of his research, sells everything for about 50%. So I had picked up 3 or 4 Benchmades in there and just modded them out, bought new scales for them. But I found that taking them apart and putting them back together, especially for some of the um, whatever the clutch lock, um, was a little bit tricky, and
Hmm.
getting those pivots out of the Benchmades was a little bit tricky. You had to buy a special tool for it and everything.
Yeah.
So I did it, and they turned out great. Um, and it's really a cool way to get knives other than going to pawn shops and stuff and estate sales. But that's kind of a cool thing. Not everybody has a state surplus. I think every state has at least one. But I did see, and this is really crazy. I usually never saw anything in there for more than 200 bucks ever. And then I went in about 6 months ago, and there was a canoe custom with Mammoth, and he had it listed for 1,500. So I know that that thing was at least in the 3,000. So
Yeah.
I go out to the car and I get on my phone and I'm looking at my credit card trying to figure out if I can afford this, because I'm like, dude, if they're marking everything at 50%, 1,500 is a sweet deal. I was in my car for maybe 5 minutes. I go back in and it was gone like that. But
Yeah.
there's a
Would
bunch
you?
of old timers. There's a
Yeah.
bunch of old timers who go sit on that place, every morning and wait for the new stuff to come in. And I've sat around and chatted with them a few times, and I'll tell you what, it's like going to the bowling alley. I mean, you just hear these old timers, and they have no filters, and they're in there telling their tall tales and everything, and it's a different version of the community. I made a trip up to Blade Show, Texas. That was my first Blade Show this past spring, and I tried to get over and see JB 3 or 4 times, but he was working that booth.
Right.
And every time I'd get over there, he'd be over there talking and chatting, and finally he had gone on break and he was over checking out some other booths somewhere, over on the OEM side. And I caught him on his way back over. So I did finally get to meet JB, even though it was brief. Um, and then I got to meet, who else did I get to meet? Lefty. I got to meet Tri-State, and Tri-State was busy with his fans, so I hung out with his wife Kara, and we watched the closed caption video of their cats, Pepperoni and Kimchi.
Right.
It's the highlight of my. But they really did a good job, and it was kind of cool for me because I went solo and I was able to do 4 trips around. It was on the last day. Um, I got to meet a lot of people from Texas who are custom makers. That was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Um, and then the one thing that I will say though, when it gets to be like 3 o'clock on that last day of the show, if you get over on that custom side, you better be ready for some hard sells going on, because I'll tell you what, those guys go from being behind the tables to coming out in front of the tables and really pitching their wares, man. When it gets down to those last couple hours, you better hold on to your wallet because they're going to sell you anything they can. It was quite
Absolutely.
fun.
Yeah.
It was.
I've never never been on the vendor or the seller side of a knife table, but I've done it a whole lot in the automotive industry, you know, and stuff like that. And I don't think people realize when they go to these events, those people that have got those booths sitting there and that have traveled from however far, and you know, in some cases have help that they have to pay and hotel rooms and stuff like that. Just because you're at a show and you got stuff out there for sale doesn't mean that you're going to be able to cover your expenses, you know,
Yeah,
and it does. That is a good time. It's crunch time. If you find somebody that's running behind and they need to make sure that they get a paycheck before they get home, you know, that sometimes is a good good time to pick up some stuff, you know. That's haggle
yeah.
time.
Well, and
So,
even so, and this is relevant only because of what's been going on the last couple of weeks.
mhm,
But with all the bad weather, I just had a guy who's a custom knife maker, and he was liquidating a bunch of his stuff because they got hit pretty hard by the tornadoes down in Tennessee.
mhm.
And you know, like I told him, you know, I wish I had more to help out, you know, but at the same time, he was selling stuff at an unbelievable discount, you know, and it's just kind of one of those, you know, sometimes you get in those situations, you know, especially in the business, because I mean, I
Mhm.
know he does this full time, but what did I ended up getting? Oh, so I've got this Manix 2.
Right.
So he had a Manix 2 in M4 with Meton Boss Zerk oiled scales, deep carry custom clip, and he even offered to coat the liners if I wanted, which I declined. But I mean, it was a $350 build, easy for
Well,
less than 100
probably
less.
just being a Met and Boss fan that I am, and I have a few sets. It's not like I have a whole bunch of them, but one of the things that keeps me from having a whole bunch of them, and I don't have any of their Zerk stuff. I don't think I've seen any of their Zerk scales ever on that site, and I could be wrong, but that I recall, they're 200 plus, you know, for a
Yeah,
set of Zerk scales. So I mean, you got
219.
you got 200 to 300, probably not knowing exactly what scales you got. There's probably 200 to 300 bucks worth of scales on it if they came from Met and Boss and they're black Zerk.
Yep,
Yeah,
absolutely,
yeah. You
absolutely.
know that stuff does not come cheap. So,
No,
but they sure are nice.
oh yeah.
So
But it
that's
got, I'll
what.
tell you what,
Yeah, that's
it
what
got a
this
little
guy.
crazy for us last night. We had a storm coming right at us,
Yeah,
and
that's that one I call the 940 Vic, because those are the Met and Boss. Those are the heat anodized engraved Victorian scales is where the Vic came from, and that's my first set of Met and Boss that I ever did was on that guy right there. So
wow.
they're amazing. So that's my Super Freak is probably my all time favorite knife, just because it's in my pocket so much. That's probably my favorite knife build that I've ever put together. You know, on that guy, and it hooked me on Met and Boss from that very first set
Yeah,
of scales. So yeah,
this will be my first Met and Boss experience, um, and I'm really looking forward to it. So, but I was telling one of the guys, I said, if that knife, and as far as my regular folders and stuff go, I don't have a lot of duplicates.
right,
I see guys who have like, you know, 20 of this bench made and 10 of this bench made, and that's cool. I'm doing the same thing with my Barlows.
right,
I get it. But like for instance, if I really like the way this other one feels, the one issue I have with this Rex 45
okay,
is these FRN scales make it feel cheap. And the blade, I mean, is beautiful, but you can't replace the scales on this. So for the most part, unless you do a full build on and just, you know, swap out the blade, but it just feels a little bit light. It just feels, for some reason, it feels good in the
yeah,
hand.
yeah,
But if the other one and the weight to it, because I'm imagining Zerk's going to have some weight to it, I think that's going to feel a little bit better. So if that's the case, then I'll probably let that one go. But
yeah. I can't wait to see that and see what those things look like. You got me excited
yeah,
now for that one. So
yeah,
I'm jealous too because I have eyeballed some of their black zirconium stuff. I haven't taken the opportunity to pull the trigger on any of them yet though. So I'm excited to see what you get. So That's
Me
cool.
too. Me
Yeah.
too. Um, as far as I've got a giant sword out there, but it's funny, I like the S35 VN, but this buck moose skinner
Mm-hmm.
has become my camping knife. And I know it's a hunting knife, but I'll tell you what, I took this out and put it against, I'm trying to remember, um, the Benchmade, the big Benchmade bushcrafter that had it had the sheath with the spot for the fire starter, but it had like
Oh
the
yeah,
blue
what was that
handle on it.
called? Yeah, I'm trying to remember what they called that.
I think it was called the bushcrafter or something like that. But
Was that what it was? Okay, I haven't really gotten into the Benchmade fixed blades that much, so
I put it up against that, and I put it up against a what was the other one? Anyway, there was three of them, and I'll tell you what, this knife right here, not only does it keep an edge, it did everything that I asked it to, with the exception of if I needed to fillet a fish, I probably wouldn't get any bend out of this whatsoever.
right,
Um, but it's just kind of one of those, when you take three or four of them out there in the woods and try them out. I wished at the time I was doing some recording so that I had that
right.
footage and maybe I can make some content out of it now. But I'll have to get
Hindsight,
out and
right?
do. Yeah, exactly. And I'll have to get out and start doing a little bit more recording when I, go out on some of my fishing trips, even if it's just for some little clips,
Right,
you
right,
know. But that's been one of the things that's I have to get used to. Actually, it's kind of a funny story. What's been making me really get better at doing content regularly is I was getting attacked by like five squirrels in the backyard, and they were cleaning out my bird feeders. But it was so funny because I had greased the pole that went up to where the bird feeder was, and the video was hilarious. So I just started putting that out on my Instagram, even though it had nothing to do with knives, But I was like, yeah. So every day when I
yeah,
got up, I had my phone ready. So now I've been walking around everywhere I go. I make sure I pick up my phone and take it with me so that if there is an opportunity to shoot some content, whether it be knife or otherwise, I have the opportunity to do so.
that's
But
cool.
that's kind of, like you said, the thinking changes a little bit when you start doing your channel. Because I don't want to just do lives and shorts. I actually do want to do some content.
Right,
And I'm even doing a little bit of investigating into um, uh, showing some of the content over on Twitter or X.
right.
Um, I know that there's been a couple of other makers who have been talking about doing the same thing, but they said that they're not getting a very good reception over there.
That's what I've
Um,
heard. It doesn't sound like anybody where they've tried to go live or post stuff over there. It just doesn't seem like there's a viewership over there for it yet. But I mean, that's kind of a new outlet too. I mean, as far as
yeah,
I know, pretty much all the knife EDC stuff. And I was no different. A lot of people come to YouTube for a lot of stuff, but obviously that's where all the recorded video content typically is traditionally gotten posted. And back when you couldn't even do video on Instagram, that's where the conversation moved to.
yeah,
And I had an old Instagram account for some photography stuff that I used to follow, and I would only go there if somebody I knew had posted some photos that I wanted to go see. I never interacted there, but I actually set up because I got started to get involved in the lives and the conversation on YouTube. It was like, okay, I need to have an Instagram account now so that I can continue the conversation over there.
yeah.
So yeah, it's funny how those two platforms have worked, but um, yeah, it'll be interesting to see if it ever spreads out much or if it kind of stays centered. Or I know that some
So
stuff
what?
goes on Facebook too, but I think so many people just I don't know, they've gravitated away from that platform. But
So what they're suggesting that you do is that you go on X twice a day and you write you post a tweet, and then on top of those 14 tweets, and you have to join, so you get a lot more than just whatever the small amount of alphabet that you were allowed before.
right,
By being a member, you get a lot more. So they want you to do like a paragraph twice a day, and then that should back up whatever you're doing on your live once a week. So
Gotcha. Gotcha.
that's their requirement for you to get started
Gotcha.
and going towards monetization.
Yeah, and
So
they're basically getting you to do the SEO for them. Basically, it sounds like.
yeah,
Yep.
and
And
it's and
well,
it
and quite honestly, that way you're telling them who you are and what you're doing, and then they know how to pick it up and where to push it. So, kind of makes sense.
and
So,
they're
yeah.
also pushing their AI. And if you want help writing your daily tweets, you can get Grok to help you write your tweets so that they're nice and polished.
Yeah. Yeah.
They've
I
got quite the
haven't.
plan over there.
Yeah. Right. I haven't played with too much of that AI generated stuff. We were messing around with it at the shop here a month or two back, and just throwing some stuff in there, seeing what it would spit out, and it was kind of like, okay, that one wasn't bad, and then you do another one, it's like, where the hell did that come from?
Yeah. Well,
So.
so here's where it's interesting for me is I just finished my first year of college
Hmm.
and I'm majoring in cybersecurity.
Okay, cool.
So colleges have to keep up with what's going on in technology like artificial intelligence.
Right.
So according to the university, I am allowed to use on any given paper, whatever, up to 25% of my resources from artificial intelligence. So if you start bending that a little bit past that 25%, you get a little notification in your email with their AI rules and regulations that you're allowed to, you know. So I've bent it a little couple times, so they're kind of like starting to push back on me, but it does kind of make it nice because instead of reading four full chapters, I can ask AI to basically pull the whole four chapters out of my textbook. And then while I'm laying in bed, reading or hanging out or doing chores, I can listen to everything being read to me aloud. So
Wow,
that was kind of
that's
one of the
cool.
cool options that AI gave me was it reads all my assignments to me.
That's very cool. That's very cool. I'm old enough and old school enough that we weren't allowed to even use calculators in school.
Right?
And writing out four paragraphs was something that you put off until the wee hours in the morning. You're sitting there getting writer's cramp. It's like, I don't want to write this out right now. What a different world it is from when we were kids. So,
Well, so I was doing my finals and I got through the entire first section of 3 of my finals and it didn't explain that the entire uh, what do they call it, lab was interactive. It didn't explain that. It didn't say, okay, this over here on the left, you're going to have to actually interact with, and you're going to have to like put in passwords and change stuff in the computer and blah, blah, blah. So all I see is over here on the right side, it's got check marks, and then you click on the box and it pulls it up in a big window and it explains to you what you need to do. So I'm going through and I'm making notes and I'm like, all right, cool, there's going to be a test at the end. So I get to the end and cool, it says that I'm done. So I go to the next section, I get halfway through. All of a sudden, nothing's going. Nothing looks like what it's supposed to look like. I'm completely lost. I mean, I'm in the weeds big time, and this is all timed. So I'm like, oh, great. So now I figure out that I'm supposed to be interacting. So now I'm trying to go back and fix everything. And I finally ended up giving up on it and I took the 15 points off, but I ended up getting it figured out the next day.
gotcha.
I lost 15 points on my final, but I got everything perfect. So I still got a B plus on it. So it's all good.
There you go. There
But
you go.
it's just kind of one of those where I thought I kind of, I felt like I was doing really good. I was keeping up with the kids.
Right.
And then I had to have that reality check where it was like, buddy, you got to pay attention just like those kids do.
All right. So I know, right? And sometimes, these kids that have kind of grown up with a lot of this stuff, to them it is second nature. No different than when we were kids and our parents were complaining, how the heck did that little kid do that? And I'm an adult and I don't. Well, because we grew up with it and they didn't. But
Yeah.
so
Well, and here's something funny too. My son, he's a computer science major, works for one of the big financial firms, and he could care less. He's not an outdoors person. I've sent him a couple pocket knives. He's actually more interested in flashlights than pocket knives. So cool,
right,
to each their own. But my daughter, my baby girl, every time we go on vacation, we go charter fishing. She's got knives in her truck. She goes hammock camping. I mean, she followed my footsteps big time. But
Hmm.
it's just funny, because she asks me about knives, and it's funny when you get out and you start doing this, and collecting and everything. Very few people really give a crap about what you're collecting, what you're doing, how many you got, what the newest one is.
Right.
I mean, my mom will humor me from time to time, probably only because I've gifted her a couple, but it is kind of funny. But I've got a couple guys from the bowling league I'm on. I bowl on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and this one old dude, he talked to me and talked to me, for probably 3 or 4 weeks, and he started watching some of my stuff on Instagram, and this is before I started on YouTube. And a couple weeks ago, um, he came up when we were bowling, and he showed me this picture, and he's like, "I thought I would show you a picture of my knife collection." And this dude probably has like 400 traditional pocket knives dating back to the 40s.
Wow.
And he's just like, I stick one in my pocket every day. He goes, I didn't even know there was a place where we could go and talk about our knives. He's like, this has just been my thing for all these
Hmm.
years. He's like, my wife doesn't care. It's just one of those things that I've always, anytime a new case knife came out, I'd go look at it. And he has some GECs and some other brands from England and such. But it's just crazy because, you never know who you're going to come across, and all of a sudden you found somebody who's got the exact same, and I've never been a collector before this, really. I mean,
Yeah.
other than like, so, but it's the community. Yes, absolutely. 100%. I keep the stuff in my collection that I'm going to use. And after watching, some of your stuff and the stuff that I've seen over the years, but most recently paying attention to the people who are putting out content right now, I kind of was thinking, what is my angle if I'm going to start shooting these videos for my YouTube channel and continuing doing these Tuesday night lives? And I finally just came to the conclusion that this journey of the first couple years of my collection, that is my angle, because there's the truth is all around my room, all out in my shed. I mean, you can tell where my journey's going, and
Yeah.
if you go back and look at some of the stuff I've had for sale over the last year or two, you'll see where my journey's been too.
Yeah. 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 And I think that there's a lot of us out there like that, and having a very new channel as well and trying to figure out how you're going to label it, what are you going to call it? What's your theme going to be, like you're just talking about? That's how, I came up with the EDC Adventure. And I was originally thinking EDC Journey, because to me, that's kind of adventure and journey are kind of a bit interchangeable in the
Yeah,
sense that, um, you know, if and not everybody subscribes to this, but to me every day is an adventure. It may be an adventure that we like or we don't like, that we want to take, that we don't want to take, that we want to talk about or we don't want to talk, but it's an adventure every day that you get up and you're vertical, and every night that you get horizontal and you fall asleep. That is an adventure. And that's exactly, kind of where that's at and what it's all about. And I was really stressed out. My biggest thing getting into this, I mentioned it a few times. I've just had a lifelong issue with being in front of a camera. I'm a photographer. I love to be behind the camera. But even when I've been in front of it, you're always like, get me out of this thing. You can't get out of there fast enough, to the point it was an issue at times, right? And so once I kind of worked through that and resolved with that, and was like, okay, I'm okay with doing this. I'm going to do it, whether it hurts or not, but I'm going to do it. Then I was like, oh crap, what am I going to do? And then talking with a few people. Zach was a big one when I was talking this out with him. He's like, dude, he says, I don't think you realize how much content you already have. And I was like, what do you mean? And because I know it's been mentioned, but I haven't really brought much content onto it. But trying to bring the vehicle EDC part of it into it. There's a little bit
yeah,
of that out there, but it's not really talked about in mainstream. And I didn't want to just feel like, and I don't know if you went through this or not, I didn't want to come in and feel like I was just trying to be every other knife channel that was out there. And to
right.
me, I honestly don't feel that I can hold my ground in a knife conversation with most of these channels that have been out there for a while. I'm still learning, and I've said it, I'm very much a student of this, and that's one of the things I love talking with guys like you and JB and Zach and doing this is I'm here to learn, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, yes, there's some Benchmade stuff and some Finch stuff and a few others that I've been passionate about. I have not had a very well-rounded modern knife experience in the past few years. I've gravitated to what my preferences were. And I think that's the exciting thing, being able to learn talking. What is Dennis like? What are your preferences? Yada, yada, yada. But it's made me want to reach out. It's made me want to expand my horizons, and try some of this stuff I've looked at from afar for a while. One of my first content related videos, I don't know where I've got it. Oh, where did I put it? Was that Spyderco? Oh, I got it right in the pocket.
Yep.
That's my first Spyderco. It really was my first Spyderco. And it wasn't that I had a problem with Spyderco. I was gravitating towards the stuff I was collecting was the stuff that was mostly in my wheelhouse. And it was like, okay, if I'm going to do this, I got to get a Spyderco in my hands. You cannot show up without a PM2, a PM3 to put on a table and compare with, neither of which I have yet. But I will have to. But no, the Shaman, and that was recommended, and it's been wonderful. And I've got finally an appreciation more than just a curiosity for Spyderco now, right?
Yeah.
And seeing how that goes. And I can't wait to get the opportunity to start to get involved in some pass around groups too. Because, I don't think any of us can afford to bring in all the stuff we want to bring in, and if you don't have it sitting in the collection behind you, sometimes it's hard to get new stuff.
If you
Budgets just don't allow it. So
if you keep an eye on OCD for EDC
yeah,
he does his Sunday night show.
yeah, yeah.
I was like, I had the PM the Para 3, I had the Shaman, but the first Spyderco I got was the PM2 blacked
Mm-hmm.
out, and it was perfect. So the next two purchases, it wasn't perfect. So I was like, nope, nope, didn't check the boxes. Away they went.
Mm-hmm.
And then I left Spyderco alone for a while because I was like, you know what? This works. This is perfect. I mean, everything about it is me. And then I was watching, and they did she did a sale one night just randomly on the show, and dropped everything on the by 20%. So I went through and I was like, well, I'd kind of like to check out an Andela, and I'd kind of like to check out an Endura, and I'd kind of like to check out this and that. Well, then I found out that they were club members of the Spyderco Club.
Right.
So each of these knives has a number stamped on it and comes with
Mm-hmm.
certificates of authenticity. But in order to become a part of that club, you have to pay for every single knife that they put out, every sprint run, every variation, all of the serrated ones. You got to buy them all. So they have these sales every now and then. So I've picked up probably 6 or 7.
Yeah.
Well, it turns out that their club number is 16. And I was born on the 16th of February.
Oh, awesome.
And the 16 was my baseball jersey number all the way until I was in high school.
There you
So
go.
16 has been one of
Yeah.
my lucky numbers.
Yeah.
So I'm like, right on. So I've got
Yeah.
a bunch of knives that have 16 on them, and so that was
There you
kind of
go.
cool.
That's cool.
But he goes through, and he also does that. What do you? But when they go out and buy seconds
Yeah, the
and sell
seconds.
seconds
Mm-hmm.
sometimes. And I
Yep.
haven't tried that. I haven't tried that yet, but not
Yeah,
with
I haven't got
them.
any. Yeah, I haven't got any seconds from him yet, but that's where this came from. When I went shopping for the Shaman, it came from the OCD for EDC store, and then I
Gotcha.
also picked up the Native 5. That one I haven't necessarily done any front end stuff on it, but I've been carrying it and want to do more of a full review on that as a smaller one at some point. But yeah, no, they do a great job with the Spyderco over there. I just kind of love their stuff. It's slick 'em all.
Yep.
I happened to be at the Benchmade meetup the day that he and Zach were kind of out in the parking lot, and they, Justin had been cooking that up in his kitchen, and we're just kind of showing a few people for the first time out there. And I happened to walk, what are you guys doing? And I saw him putting that stuff on Zach's on his burgundy red shot show mini Adamas that had some issues, and they were trying to get the action right on it. And it was like, oh, sign me up. It's like, when can we get that? He says, not for sale right now. I was like, oh man, well, when is it going to be for sale? And I think that as soon as I found that is just the best stuff. And that's what's
Yep.
so cool about this community too, is guys like Justin, OCD for EDC. You know, we've got a lot of guys coming up with their own knife designs. Look at Pacific Northwest Fun Stuff, you know, and how he's taken and quite I don't know if that's you know, a hobby, a passion, you know, therapy, but he's taken a craft that he does very well, and he's brought it to the community. You know, look at
Yeah.
you know, Lancelot Leather and those guys, you know, and how they put together that store. Oh, help me, EDC Roundtable. There, I was drawing a
Yeah.
blank on it, but the EDC Roundtable. You know, those are all community guys that are just pretty much like you and I, that have just brought something to the table and want to share it. You know,
Yeah.
whether they're in it for the money or they're in it for the creating it and sharing it. To me, it doesn't really matter that much. You know, but it's neat here
It does
again.
make it makes it fun. It makes it a lot more fun when you have that connection
Yeah.
to the person, not just the knife.
Oh, very much
Having a
so.
custom build, that was having that custom build done. That was great. But you know what? I also supported Marty when he came out with this Phoenix. But the
Hmm.
thing is, I wouldn't have bought the Phoenix if it wasn't the right fit for me. And
Yeah.
once again, here's a knife that fits me perfectly.
Yep.
And then the other one I just picked up recently was the Mangana Steel Kaimano.
Uh huh. Oh, that's
I'll tell you
beautiful.
what, that's a big old knife. That blade's over 3.5. Got a big old poon on it too.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
But
That
this is
thing's
one of
crazy.
those that,
He does some amazing stuff. So,
oh,
yeah.
definitely.
And I don't know if you were on the live last night or not. I think you were. I'm pretty sure you
Yeah,
were. You know, and I was running a little bit behind, but it kind of unboxed this in a hurry. And, you know, this is, you know, from New Breed. And quite honestly, Loot, what is it? Loot Tex 10 or Loot 10 Tex. I hope I'm
yeah.
not screwing that up too much. He also is another very new channel to me. Basically, I discovered him very much the way I discovered you, and was snooping around. It was like, I need to check this out. And I've been enjoying getting in his lives and getting to know him. And when they were talking about his knife, the Clydesdale, and it was
Yep.
like, holy crap. And it was like, that is a cool knife. It was like, how has that not been on my radar? And it's like, you know, we got to support, especially, you know, community guys and younger channels. And I haven't had a chance to play with it much. It's been sitting over there since it came out, but I am really looking into getting in and checking this out a little bit. You know,
I'll tell
Casey
you what.
Knives Fast was another one, the Pinion. And it
Yeah.
was kind of like you know, he had that first knife that didn't fun for him. How he recovered so well and so quickly and got another one coming out, that had to be hard and devastating to go through that on that first
Oh
knife.
yeah.
And when that Pinion came in, it's like, man, I'm buying one of those whether I want one or not. That guy
Yep.
needs a break, you know. And if I remember right, the Pinion funding, what do they call those when they do that? They're not a GoFundMe. The what?
Crowd starter.
Yeah, yeah. When they do those kind of starter deals like that, and it was like on that one, I think it happened a lot quicker than he was thinking it was going to. You know, thank goodness. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, I love to try to support the people in the community as I can when I can. So that's a great
Well,
place to start buying new knives. So
that Clydesdale's a dropper. I'll tell you what, the action on that thing is amazing.
mm-hmm.
But with a blade that big, it almost has to be, man. I mean,
Right, right. You got a lot of
that thing
counterweight
is a
going there.
that's a chopper there. In
Yeah, it is.
fact,
So,
that gave
but
my Megatherium a run for its money, I'll tell you.
I'll bet, But yeah, no, it definitely. And thank goodness there's that little tab right up there. Till I get used to it a little bit more, I'm gonna have to get that thumb out of the way a lot faster. This is new to me. I just barely got into a few front flippers, so I'm struggling on the front flipper action. But yeah, that sucker it wants to come down.
So my Astral that Edgy Blade Works built, one of the cool things that he did on this is so you can thumb flick it out and you can reverse flick it pretty good. So it'll come right out there. But I'm not a big front flipper fan either. But if you look right there, I mean, he just put enough there. It's not poking up or anything.
Yeah,
But if you just put your thumb right in the center of it and just walk it over, I
yeah.
mean, this thing just comes right out
Until you get on camera with them, right?
until you get on camera. But
It's the
for
camera
me,
jinx.
being not a front flipper person, not being a front flipper person, I'll take 3 out of 5 any day.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Sometimes if I can just manage to get the darn thing open, I'll take it, even if it's 20. This is my first front flipper, and it's that Jack Wolf that I picked up not too awful long ago, and that's the very first front flipper that I've ever actually had in my collection. And
Yeah.
you know, I'm finally starting to get more comfortable with this one. But I just haven't had a chance to carry it that much. But when I first hit that thing, it took me like half a dozen times just to get it to open once.
Yeah.
So, but very cool, very cool.
All right. And then the other thing that I've been doing, I'm a sucker for these clearance sales that these guys do because it gives me an opportunity to get my hands on knives that a lot of people are talking about, but I just didn't see spending that kind of money when they were
Hmm.
full retail. So like these Kaisers, this Towser, this thing is awesome. And I'll tell you what, I only paid like 32 bucks for it. So
Right,
for a $32 knife that was originally retailing for over 100, so I do have a soft spot for finding some deals. But like out of the two of these that I got from Kaiser, I'll probably add one of those to my giveaway that I do in June.
very
But then
cool.
I did the same thing. I did the same thing with Kubi. I bought a couple of theirs, but the main reason I did that is because one of my first premium knives I ever bought was this Kubi Vagrant, and I got it off Lee over at Love Them Knives.
Okay,
And I'll tell you what, this was like in my apron out in the shop every day for like a year and a half. It just is easy to operate. The action on it's great, and it gave me a good feeling about Kubi. So when they had their clearance sale recently, I picked up a couple of those, and I think I'm going to keep one of them and give one of those away as well.
right.
But it's amazing how many of these companies are putting out. I mean, it's crazy. I paid $100 for this, and I mean, it's like all titanium. So what we're getting right now, I mean, it's a buyer's market. If you're on the used market, I know even a lot of those, companies are doing their year end, still doing their year end clearances, but
Yeah,
um, I know it's tight out there for folks, but there's some good deals to be had if you can afford.
there really is, which can add up and make it tough on the knife budget when you run into too many good sales. Uh, I know Austin and the boys over at traditionalpocketknife.com, they had a couple of 20% off sales going on, spring sales. Finch, which hardly ever has a sale, had one. And of course, I've got a Finch issue, a good Finch issue, but it's an issue. And then you back it up with the Jack Wolf sale, which never go on sale either.
Right,
Another
right.
20% off.
20% off.
Holy crap. I mean, it was like, there went the knife budget for a while.
Yeah.
But at least there's some good stuff. I don't, and I picked up some little slip joints from Austin over there. I don't really know anything about them, but it was like they were $40 to $60 slip joints, and most of them were on sale for $10. And I was like, well, I get it, you're blowing them out, but can they be that bad if they were originally $50 or $60? And it's like, let's buy a bunch of those bad boys up for giveaways. And
Yeah.
I've only kind of looked at a couple of them. They're not bad. It's like, holy crap. That.
So I'll tell you, I picked up about half a dozen of them.
Uh-huh.
And what I do with them is I give them to people because I do homeless outreach.
Right.
So we give them to the homeless guys. And here's the
Oh,
reason
cool.
why these are perfect is because you can't pawn it. So I mentioned before, I like to go over to the surplus store and buy knives and then restore
Right.
them.
Mm-hmm.
So I was buying some little case peanuts and some real small, two blade, single blade case knives. And I was fixing them up, getting them all oiled up and everything. And I was giving them to these homeless guys, in my community.
Right.
Well, the funniest thing is I go to like 6 or 7 pawn shops in my specific part of town. Well, all these knives that I was giving to these homeless guys were showing up in the pawn shops, and I was having to rebuy my own knives again. So
Oh
I
man.
finally figured out you can't give them anything that they can get $10 for because they'll sell it for dope or alcohol.
Right.
So you got to find something that's nice but not too nice.
Right. Yeah, you're trying to help, not cause, right?
That's right. That's right. You know, you were talking about your car thing. Um, I'll tell you, one of the things that I do like about the lives as well is we can get off on these tangents, and you'll find that a lot of people kind of get used to it, or they do like it. So for me, one of the things that I share when I do my lives is I give everybody an update on my bowling.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm not trying to brag, but I'm bowling better than I've bowled in all of my 52 years that I've been bowling. So
Yeah.
I find it kind of exciting to be able to share that. And the other aspect of it that makes it worth sharing is um, I'm bowling in nationals in Las Vegas in July for the first time in my career. I've bowled in a lot of city tournaments
Hmm.
and state tournaments, but I've never bowled in nationals. And as I'm leading up to going to nationals, I also have the highest average that I've ever held in my entire life. 7 or 8 months after having quadruple bypass, I'm bowling a 200 plus average for the first time in my career. And at the age of 57, that is plenty enough to be able to go pro. Now, I'm not jumping down that road, but I'm excited about the fact that my average is high enough I could go pro. I mean, it's like fixing up that car and then taking it out to the drag strip and finding out it does do, what you thought it would do.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You know,
Yeah. No,
so I
and I
find that
love that.
sharing that.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the first lives of yours I caught. You and I ended up talking about your bowling a little bit. Not
Yeah,
not too long, about a
yeah,
month or so ago. I think it was when you were talking about trying to figure out your trip to nationals, I think. So,
yeah,
and
absolutely.
you're right. We get off on these tangents, but isn't it funny how people will pick up on them? And I don't know about you, but there's been a few times like, well, maybe I'm going to mention this. Is like, no, I'm not going to mention. It's not really relevant. There's not going to be anybody that's going to hear me talk about that. And the next thing you know, it just kind of slips out, or you give it a chance, or whatever. It's like, wow, I didn't expect that kind of response.
Yeah,
And we've had a cookie thing going for a few weeks, and I think
yeah.
that's kind of surprised all parties involved. It's like, how the heck do we get that fired up over cookies and raisins?
Well, let me tell you something funny about that little cookie thing.
Yeah.
So I'm on day 5 of gluten free,
Uh
and all that cookie talk was killing me last night,
huh.
man.
Oh, dude, I'm sorry.
I, I haven't been able to have bread, tortillas, nothing
Oh
like
no.
that. So I'm listening to cookies, peanut, and I even chimed in. Peanut butter is one of my favorites. Oh, I got a dog back there getting ready to knock over my camera.
Uh
Hey, come here!
oh.
Don't be messing around over there.
Yep.
Um, yeah. So that cookie thing. Um, I've actually started feeling quite a bit better. The second day, I got a headache really bad for probably about half the day. And then, like the third and fourth day, I just felt like I was never full, like I was never satisfied.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is day 5, here we go. And I'm kind of starting to figure it out a little bit more.
Yeah.
But my main thing is I have, what do they call it? Pre-diabetes.
Uh huh.
So it was either make some kind of a change or I was going to have to start taking insulin, and I'm not really wanting to go down that road. I'm
Yeah.
not a
Absolutely.
needle guy.
Yeah.
But one
I
of the
hear you.
other cool things we were talking about with this community is I'm taking this trip to Las Vegas, and turns out one of the guys from our community, Demonoc, you might have seen him out there from
Yeah.
time to time.
Yeah.
He's the Zamboni driver for the Las Vegas Golden Knights NHL hockey team.
Oh, really?
So he's actually putting in for taking a day off. So when I come out for the tournament, that we're going to hang out and go check out Vegas together.
That's cool. That's very
Show
cool.
me his favorite knife show or knife
Yeah.
store.
Yeah. Yeah. That is, and whether you're doing meetups, whether you're just meeting people one on one, that, well, quite honestly, that's how Zach and I became friends. Is went to a meetup, met him, obviously was a fan of his channel, and then you get to know him a little bit, and then pretty soon you're just having a little bit more conversation, a little bit more. And almost any time I go through Portland now, and unless the schedule doesn't allow it, it's like, dude, what are you doing? Going to be hitting town about this time. He's like, meet you at the mothership. He's like, meet you at the mothership, and it's just two guys getting together, going to look at a couple of knives and BS for a little bit,
Yeah.
and and
So
friendships develop. It's cool.
yeah. So where is your home base at?
I'm in Southern Oregon, is where I'm at. So from
Okay.
from where Zach is up in the greater Portland area, and he's basically about a 4-hour drive north of where I'm at. So he'll be at the
Okay.
very north end of the state, right off of the I-5 and 205 corridor up there. Hop on I-5 and drive for about 4 hours south, and I'm about 30 to 35 miles north of the California-Oregon border. At the southern end of Oregon is where I'm at. So right off of the
Okay.
I-5 corridor. So kind of inland from the coast. We can, about an hour and a half or so to drive over to the Oregon coast from where we're at. Or we head about an hour and a half to the other side of us. We go over some mountains and we're up in the high desert of Oregon, kind
Oh
of
yeah.
more in central Oregon. So we're kind of in a little valley down here, a little basin, and yeah.
So way, way, way back in the day when I was a wee pup, um, I lived in Klamath Falls for
Yeah.
about 6 months,
Yeah.
and then I lived in Chiloquin for about a year, and that's where I met my first wife. And my oldest boy is still out there in Klamath Falls right now.
Yeah.
So, but I
Yep.
loved it out there. And when you talk about the coast, um, Yachats,
Mm-hmm.
Yachats,
Yep.
Oregon. We had some family who was down in that neck of the woods, and they had a little place, and they kept it year round, but they only went out there like a month out of the year. So it was kind of like a timeshare before they started doing
Mm-hmm.
timeshares.
Yeah.
But they would allow us once we became of age, to spend a week out there, and it was just a little cottage up on the cliffs, and
Yep.
then off in the distance on the point, you could see one of the many, many beautiful lighthouses on the Oregon coast.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, that's probably the first place where I learned to just listen to all that's going on around you, because there was no city noise. You could
Mm-hmm.
hear the ocean, you could hear the wind, but you were high up enough. And it was just one of those where I really started kind of figuring things out, 21, 22 years
Yeah.
old,
Yeah.
you start learning a little bit. But um, I did love that. The only regret I have about my time not spent was I always wanted to fish Crater Lake. It always seemed very mysterious to me, being so deep that I could pull some kind of a monster out of the bottom of that thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't even know if they let people fish out of it at this point anymore. Maybe they do. I go up there not as much as I'd like, but when I go up there for photography,
Oh
Crater
yeah.
Lake, I walk out the front door and I can be up at the rim of Crater Lake in about an hour and a half. Driving from where I'm at, and it's just gorgeous.
Yeah.
And but as far as going out there in a lot of boats or anything like that, they have their little, what do they call it, their little ferry boat that they've got out there and stuff like that. But aside from that, I don't think they even let motorized vehicles of any kind out on that thing.
No, I think
But
yeah, I think there's like bike trails and that's about it.
yeah, yeah, and I'll tell you what, you do want to go down and take a little ride on. That's a pretty it's a pretty good walk down and back,
Oh
to get
yeah.
down in there, to get down to that water. So better be ready for a hike. But yeah, we're very blessed in Oregon. We've got Crater Lake, the Oregon coast, as you were talking about. It's just a phenomenal place. So yeah, it's very cool. A lot of adventure here. So
Absolutely. Some of
yeah.
the best fishing, some of the best creek and brook fishing that I've ever done. And the first big, big trout, because I was used to catching trout that were like maybe a pound or two,
Uh-huh.
rainbow trouts out of the creeks and brooks in
Right.
Montana and Washington.
Yeah.
And then I went fishing with a guy, and it was so crazy because it was just like, it was so unexpected. But we went out his back door, and we step off of his porch, and there's this, I called it a creek, but it was a river, but it wound through the back part of his property, and it really was like a snake. And he was like, come on. And he gave me this pole. And I'm like, man, this pole seems a little heavy for what we're fishing. And about the time I said that, this brown trout hit that thing. and took that pole about out of my hands. This
Yeah.
thing probably 7 or 8 pounds,
They're
but I was
strong
so
fish
not.
too. Yeah.
I was not expecting it at all. That was kind of size fish I expect to catch out of the ocean, and this guy's like, we can catch him out of here all day long. So I'll tell you what, I really did get spoiled moving around with the Navy, all the different kinds of fishing.
I'll
Um,
bet.
when I was in high school, one of my dad's last station was the Fallbrook Naval Weapons Station. It was on the backside of Camp Pendleton.
Okay.
And what you would find stored there would be like leftover munitions from Vietnam that were napalm that they couldn't figure out how to get rid of yet. They were storing that stuff in all these bunkers and stuff, but there weren't a lot of people on this base. There was like 6 or 7 houses and then the Marine Corps barracks and everything. So when I was probably, oh, I don't know, 15, my last year I did Boy Scouts. We did a scout trip out onto the base, which no one was allowed to be out on this base because of security.
Right.
And they let a lot of these area go to lease so farmers could bring their cattle out there, and that would get rid of all the vegetation. But there were also these lakes, beautiful blue water in these lakes in Southern California. And we got out there, and I'm not kidding you, 15 to maybe 11 years old, 11 to 15, and then 3 scoutmasters. And as quick as these kids could start throwing these curly worms out into these lakes, these kids are hitting 6, 7, 8, 9 pound bass in lakes that have never been fished, ever. I
Yeah.
mean, just the honey pot. And it was just amazing, some of the stuff, and now I realize how insulated we were being military kids, living on the bases. We never got in trouble. We never had to go to court or anything. If we got in trouble for, drinking or smoking, they always just told our dad and let him lick us,
Hmm.
so it was just kind of the way it was. But yeah, the fishing, that's another thing that I bring up on my show quite a bit, is because
Yeah.
that's how I got it. If it wasn't for the fishing, I wouldn't be doing the knife thing. So
Right. Well, and that's what's cool, and I love to hear obviously we've talked a lot about it tonight, and stories and stuff like that. But it really is, whether you're talking about cookies or, you're talking about cars and trucks. And I was a little bit surprised when I started to mention the vehicle EDC stuff. There's a lot more interest out there than I thought, and so I'm encouraged that that's going to go over well. The bowling, things like that. And I don't know how
yeah,
many other people you connected with over bowling, but I'm an old league bowler. I haven't bowled
yeah,
for a while yet, but, for, I don't know, probably half a dozen years or something like that. But for a long time, and I remember walking in and you were talking about how you're carrying your best average ever. And I was a chronic 175 to 185, maybe 190 average bowler for a long time. And I
yeah,
could never, ever get the average up. I would be rolling some strong low to mid 200 games for a while. And it's like, boy, all you got to do is blow that third game, and it just has
yeah,
a way of sucking you right back below 200 again.
yeah.
But no, it's neat. It's amazing what you connect over, and have you ever rolled a 300?
No, 286.
Oh, dude.
And and it was a humility thing too, because sometimes, life makes you have to be humble.
Hmm.
So I threw 10 in a row on league, so it would have counted. I threw 10 in a row. I got up to throw the 11th ball, and I guess my hands were sweaty, and literally I dropped it at the foul line. And this ball did not go in the gutter. It literally did like 2.5 miles an hour all the way down the lane, and then hit like 4 pins. And then I didn't pick up I didn't end up picking it up. But either way, I had a 286, and I've since then. I mean, I've thrown 12 in a row, probably 7 or 8 times over a span of 2 games, but not in one game. But the thing that I've been noticing is that my clean games, for me to go throw 3 games with no opens, has become a lot more regular. And I think for me, it's just I'm having fun.
Yeah.
I used to get super competitive, and I also used to bowl a lot at night. And one of the things when you bowl at night, there's also a lot more drinkers.
Hmm.
And me not being somebody who drinks, that kind of is annoying to me, that people are like standing in line at the bar instead of down bowling where they should be,
Right.
you know. And then we ended up losing a championship to a team that could barely walk out the door one night at the end of a season. And literally, I mean, they couldn't walk out the door. And so it was kind of one of those where it was like, I was like ready to switch over to some different types of leagues.
Yeah.
So one of the good things, if you're around anywhere that has industrial warehouses or industrial areas of town, a lot of times you'll find industrial leagues where they'll have leagues at like 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning for the people who work third shift.
Right.
So I started looking for those leagues, and then when I started finding some real cool, folks to bowl with on those leagues, it became a better click
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I've been a night person my whole life.
Yeah.
When I drove a truck, I drove at night. When I was in the limo business, most of that business is at night. So it's just kind of been something that has stuck with me. So I usually go to bed at 5, 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. So it was kind of cool to find guys that were, bowling at 9 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday.
That's cool. Yeah, that's cool.
My people, my
Right.
people.
I hear you. I hear you. Yeah, no, my league bully's always been evening as well. And I'm a night owl, but no, you get into those evening leagues and it can get annoying, especially if you're trying to focus and you're trying to roll something together and stuff like that, but they, they have a Friday morning men's league at one of the bowling, or at least they used to when I was bowling a lot. And that was the one I always wanted to be able to go and bowl in because that had all of the solid guys. You had some young
Yep.
guys all the way up to the old guys, and it was just a fun. And every once in a while, if I had a day off or whatever, would go out and hang out with a buddy of mine that bowled that thing. And it's like, this is so cool, but it's like I can't be taking every Friday morning off, and doing this. But no, it's cool. It's great fun, great camaraderie here again. Especially when you're got a team atmosphere, and bowling on that league. But
Yeah.
no, that's
Yeah.
cool. Well, I hope
And
you
it, and
get
it
your
gets me out of the
300th.
house.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
it does.
Well,
Yeah.
I can see it happening. And before the last 4 or 5 years. Prior to that, I couldn't imagine it. Now I can imagine it. So that tells me that it's going to happen, and it's just a matter of me staying out there and
Yeah.
keeping on. You
Yeah.
know.
No, I hear you.
So
I
what kind of cars do you what kind of cars do you have in the barn?
As far as personal cars, I'm not like a huge car collector. I mean, basically, my business and my partner's business, we basically accessorize cars, trucks, and SUVs.
Okay.
For many years, we started off basically spraying black bed liners in trucks was how our business started, and been in the business for 22 years, and then this is our 20-year anniversary of owning the store coming up in August, and when we first were doing the business, that's all it was just spraying bed liners in trucks, and then
Yeah.
over the years, and that's done well, and that was the girl that brought us to the dance for all those years. But then, that grew into doing some accessories and doing some undercoating. And anymore, we're, are not that we do any less on the spray on, bed liners and coatings. If anything, we do as much as we ever have or more. But the accessory part of our business has really grown up. And we're probably anywhere between 60 to 70% of our business is accessories. We do
Yeah.
tons of running boards, Nerf bars, tonneau covers, canopies, that kind of stuff, bumpers, winches, lights, floor mats, a lot of the common stuff that people, when they get a new car, truck, or SUV, need or want to kind of finish that and make it their own and make it function for them.
Yeah.
COVID very much within our industry, when they sent everybody home, like you were referring to earlier, everybody went home and realized that they didn't want to sit there and stare at each other. And so they went and found Dennis's favorite fishing holes and invaded them, right? Well,
That's
that very
it.
much has happened in the aftermarket automotive world, and it became really clear really fast that the overlanding and off-road, anything to do with your vehicle, getting out camping, at first, it was trailers, and we do like hitches, fifth wheel hitches, receiver hitches, gooseneck hitches is one of the accessories we've done for a long time, right? And when we came, because we shut down for COVID for a while, and we came back, all of a sudden our hitch business went through the roof. The problem is everybody went out and bought every RV and trailer they could find, which led to every receiver hitch or in-bed hitch that was on the shelf at a supplier somewhere getting cleaned out. And now
Yeah.
all of a sudden you couldn't find trailers and you couldn't find hitch parts. And, and then kind of the overlanding segment in the off-road world, which is basically, I mean, it could be a lot of things, but overlanding is essentially using your vehicle and essentially turning your car, truck, or SUV into a mini Winnebago, for
Yeah.
lack of a better term. So you can, whether you want to soft land it, stay on the pavement, stay on the groomed roads, or you want to get more aggressive and you want to go off and make the trail, get on some of the more extreme trails. It's what do you need to outfit your vehicle with, right?
Yeah.
How do you make it self-sustained? Obviously, a lot of weird politics and stuff going on in the world too. The doomsday preppers and the SHTFF guys getting ready to get out of town. All that stuff crosses over, and so that segment blew up in our industry. And before COVID and all that stuff happened, we would get one or two calls a year for what I would call an overland kind of a base type of accessory.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of wonderful pieces and parts out there for it, but oftentimes they're made by very small shops, not necessarily mainstream manufacturers who are not usually picked up through the distributors that places like us normally buy our parts from, right? And so it was like without going out and becoming direct dealers for these places, we couldn't serve our customers for those products they were asking for. Like I said, within a few months after the whole shutdown and COVID happened, it became very evident, boy, we better go start looking for that because we're getting a lot of calls for it now. And
Yeah.
so that was very much something that was, we were very, very comfortable with the installations and doing that type of work. We just needed to go get educated on the specialty stuff, and that's kind of where Super Squatch, my Gladiator, the Zach has talked about a lot, and then of course I've talked a little bit with my channel.
Yeah.
And that all started to happen. Zach came down here when we went to meet with Worksharp a few years ago, trying to, organize that Worksharp meetup. We had just bought in that thing, and he saw it when it was an ugly Gladiator truck. And yes, people, they are all ugly when they're stock. Ask any Gladiator owner until you put a lift and some wheels and tires on them, they're ugly. And that is exactly what we've done. Like the day before he came down, lift, wheels, and tires went on, we call it Super Squatch now, but the Gladiator. And he and I rode down to Worksharp in it. And that's one of the reasons why he kind of attached to it. And then he kind of knew what we were doing, and he was getting some behind the scenes as we build it out, But that came along. We've also got a Toyota Tacoma that we've built out similarly. That's and these are they're display vehicles, to be able to display. We've only got so much showroom space, so we use our vehicles and stuff to display,
Right.
and they were very much there and to show these builds. People want this stuff, but if they're a lot, they're no different than knife guys, really. Whenever possible, you want to get it in your hand, right? Well, it's no
Yeah.
different when somebody's going to drop $1,000, $2,000, $4,000, $5,000 on a rooftop tent. They want to see it.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
don't want to buy it off of the internet, and so that's very much where all that came from. But no, the Gladiator, it very much is a daily driver for me, and I fell in love with the thing along the way as we were building it, and it is very neat. The Tacoma. Yeah, you guys are going to be hearing some more about that coming up here pretty quick. I can't really speak to what's going on with that right now, but probably in a few weeks. There's a cool opportunity that's come out of those two trucks and stuff. And believe it or not, I think once people see what's going on and we get a little, they'll understand more of the whole vehicle EDC thing. And
Yeah.
and these are extreme examples of it. And I'll be the first one to say that this is not what everybody needs, but they make great platforms to talk about how do you carry the stuff you need to go to work in,
Yeah.
and we do a lot more work truck builds, as far as canopies and bed slides and van upfits, as far as, for tradespeople, getting these vehicles set up so they can go out and they can make a living, right? We do a lot more of that stuff. The overland and the 4-wheel drives, and they're just sexy.
Yeah.
Even people that aren't into them look at them.
I
Sometimes I
mean,
have a hard time getting into my truck when I go to the grocery store, because I'll get out there, there'll be 2 or 3 people sitting there staring at it, and I want to talk about it, right? Good problem to have, right? But
yeah.
that's really the difference, and that's kind of how we do. And so, as far as having a whole lot of collector cars or trucks or anything, no, not so much. They come and go as you trade them out, just like everybody. But like I say, I get my hands on pretty much everything. Over the last 22 years, I've driven about every
Yeah.
truck that has come out in the last 22 years, and you get to play with a lot of cool stuff, and
Yeah.
quite honestly, we get to help people. And this is what it's being part of the knife game. It's made me learn that what we do with vehicles is very much, and I'm convinced of it now, it's very much helping people basically carry the stuff that they need. That's really
Yeah.
all it is. Whether it's helping them get in and out easier, or having a place for them to stow those tools or whatever. That's all it is. It's just vehicle EDC. So, but
Well, and like for instance, my deal, one of the reasons that I chose what I chose as a major when I decided to go back to school was I wanted something that I could do remotely because, recently because of
yeah,
the pandemic, people have started to, embracing this remote work thing.
yeah,
And it wasn't because I wanted to be, in one particular location that was off the grid. It's that I want to be in every location because that's the way I've lived my life, is always rolling, I
right,
mean, you do 2.5 million miles of trucking, you get to a lot of windshield time, you get
yeah,
to look around a lot, so that gets in your blood, and it did for me.
mm-hmm,
So the other thing, speaking to the Pacific Northwest, was my first real exposure to people who were like gung ho 4-wheel drive people. And I remember as a kid, just some of the trails through the woods that some of these kids would take me on. And I'd be scared to death we were going to end up wrapped around a tree. But these guys grew up out there, and, and it's amazing because I think that was really the first time that I ever saw like the Toyota people,
mm-hmm,
the Toyota 4-wheel drive people out in the woods
yeah,
was like a thing up there, and I was just kind of like, huh, this is interesting, I think I was driving like a Monte Carlo at the time,
right,
tried to follow my buddies out in the woods and ended up stuck up to the axles.
yeah, yeah. No, you're very correct, and I think that, and there's lots of places around the country where there's lots of trail systems and stuff like that, but we're very fortunate here in Oregon due to the logging industry. Washington, parts of California have the same thing, where logging has been such a big part of these communities for a long time. To get up on these mountains and do it, logging roads have had to have been built or get built to do it. Some of them continue to be maintained. They're basically just graded gravel roads, and then others over time they don't stay maintained, and weather and time gets them, and then before you know it, it's like, okay, we got pavement, we got groomed gravel, we got 2-track, and then we got, okay, we might as well have just gone to the Rubicon, gentlemen.
Yep.
And it is just fun. There are a lot of places to explore and get out. And to me, I think that's if there's a positive that came out of, the pandemic and all the shutdowns and stuff like that, we've seen it in spades. It's great to see people that have gone out and either for the first time connect or go out and I'm a victim of this too. I'd kind of gravitated away from my outdoor lifestyle from where I was a kid, and or help reconnect us with the outdoors, getting out and doing more traveling and camping, and not necessarily being connected, you know, and getting away from the cell service and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's fun. It's really cool. You sit your butt in the seat of that Jeep, and you're looking at that. Okay, what are we going to do now? It's like, well, hit the lockers, boys, because we're going to go for a ride. Lock her up, and
Yeah.
let's make this happen, and let's go climb up the side of a mountain. It's cool. and it's not for everybody, but boy, once you've had a chance to get out there and experience that a little bit, most people are
Yeah.
like, I get it. I understand. And, and where you can set these things up. There are people, and I think a lot of people on YouTube probably stumble across. There are people out there that are going out and they're living out of these rigs, these trucks, these Subarus sometimes, these Sprinter conversion vans, whatever. They are literally living out of them. I mean
Yeah.
that is their primary residence. They have figured out how to work if they still need to, or just travel around and enjoy the country and explore and whatever makes them happy, and
Yeah.
very much like our community and the knife community. There's a community kind of for that. And it went from being a very obscure community that was largely pioneered out of South Africa and Australia. They've been doing it forever since vehicles were around.
Yeah.
And that stuff has made it across the pond and people have picked up on it. And it's a great way to go have an adventure now. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I've been following a few people on the socials. I'll tell you, I had a proud papa moment a couple weeks ago. One of the things that we promised my daughter, or all the kids, when they graduate from high school, college, um, they get a trip to Hawaii. Well, she didn't want me or grandma to go with. She wanted to go with her beau.
Hmm.
And he's quite the adventurer as well. I really like him. He's a great guy. But 7 days in Oahu, they went and stayed with a friend instead of staying at the resorts and the hotels.
Yeah.
And two of the nights they were there, they camped out on the beach.
Oh,
And
cool.
I was just like, that just did my heart so much good knowing
Right.
that my daughter's not so, hoity toity. She can't go put a campfire up and sleep on the
Right.
beach with her boyfriend. And I just got so excited. That tickled me so much. The other thing she did, I have not done this. Um, she did a tandem skydive. And I'm just not one to jump out of a perfectly good airplane myself, but
I'm right
the
there with you, my man.
video
I'm right there.
the video of it was exhilarating. I mean, it really looked like she had a great time, but I really was. I was so proud that she went camping on Oahu instead of,
Nice.
doing the bougie downtown stuff.
Right.
Makes you think that you kind of got some of it right anyway.
Well, absolutely. And it's funny how I know it's very much been the case for me, but a lot of the people that we work with, we've talked about it. It's funny how we've kind of gravitated back to our roots quite a bit through all of this. And whether it's your taste in music and going back to stuff you listened to as a kid that you got away from, or just going out and camping more. But yeah, there's as many negatives as there have been through all of the last 4 or 5 years with all this crap. There's been some positives, I think, that the people have gotten out of it. So
Absolutely,
yeah, and
absolutely.
I don't think that we're sitting here talking about doing this without the pandemic. To be quite honest with you, because
I agree.
I don't know that I ever would have taken the time to have or had the extra time to go and start looking for knives that, quite honestly, I didn't really need. But it was just an interest, a fascination, and then deciding that it was time to kind of pick up my sharpening game, and really got off on the sharpening tangent, and it's become a passion. And without that, without YouTube, without having that time, without actually having COVID and kind of healing up and coming out of it and finding like JB's channel chat that we were talking about. I literally
Yeah,
did two or 3 days in a row of channel chat, and I was already a JB fan and stuff like that, and had been watching his videos, and I just was looking for old content because I was out of the new stuff, and I was going and I saw those, and I remember going back to the very first one and watching. I clicked on it, and I was like, "That's cool." And it was table down, and and I'd always known him face forward, and I didn't know he started out just table only. And a lot of those first channel chats, neither party was in front of the camera. It was table down.
yeah,
And but I found myself laying there listening to these stories and stuff like that. I was like, this is cool. And
yeah,
I have to go back. I don't know that I hit every single one of those, but I've hit probably 95% of those channel chats, and a lot of it came in those 2 or 3 days. Where you're just like, you didn't even feel like standing up. You barely felt like turning the television on.
yeah,
So, but it was, and that was one of the things that kind of kept my brain going and kept me as we were recovering. So it was cool.
Another thing is, and I know Ionin does
Hmm.
this, and there's several other guys who do this. But the other thing that I've put in is story time.
Hmm.
And one of the reasons for story time is because this is like we're talking about right now. This is
Yeah.
the story,
Yeah.
and it might not be there if I don't put it out there. Because, like, I mean, my folks, my dad passed 15 years ago, and my mom will probably live to be 100, but all that doesn't matter if you don't take a minute and get the story.
Correct.
And I wanted to make sure that even if it was just a little 2 or 3 4 minutes each show, I'm going to put a little bit of my story out there. And then, when I'm dust, maybe the grandkids or the great grandkids will have something to go back and laugh about. And they'll be like,
Yeah. Right.
or,
Right.
or even maybe they'll follow in my footsteps and they'll be, apprentice cutlers or, knife collectors or whatever, what have you. But I would just be happy if, they had any of that, fishing. I just think they need to find hobbies and find fun things to do like I did. My daughter's doing really, really good at that. She's an adventurous person, just like I am. But I also find it super interesting to try and figure out what my more studious son is going to turn out to be,
Right.
because his life is like, without putting too much of his information out there, let's just say Dr. Phil would have a field day. So, but it's one of those where it's like when somebody's successful,
Yeah.
they just do things differently than everybody else. You can't really say anything because it's like, well, it's working.
That's right.
It
That's
doesn't
right.
look like everybody thinks it's supposed to look like. But I think that's one of the things that happened to us over this pandemic is what things used to look like was no longer relevant because there was just new. Everything
Hmm.
around us was new. It was, and what was our reaction going to be? And as far as reactions and the way things have turned out, I never would have expected to have my YouTube channel, my Instagram, considering anything else, and let alone collection of knives. I mean, I probably would have bought into, if you would have told me I had a nice set of kitchen knives, I probably would have bought that. But um, I think I had it up to about 150 knives before I called the collection down here at the end of last year. But I'm still probably sitting around 75 or 80.
Yeah.
But for the most part, they're all users. They're all
Yeah.
knives that I carry.
Well, that's cool. I don't even want to start counting, to be quite honest with you. I don't know that I want to know that, and I certainly don't want to make it public knowledge. But oh, puppy got you.
Yeah, he did.
Uh
Undo. Hold on.
oh.
Give me 1 second.
No worries, my man. Life happens. We're rolling with it. We're going all natural here. Remember? So
Oh, yeah. Actually, you know what I can do is I can unplug that now.
there you
And I should just be able to take that up. Hello, and we're back.
go. Very cool.
So
Recovery.
yeah,
I love it.
when I asked you before we got started whether or not phone or computer, um, I knew the phone would probably have the better picture. Um, but then I looked down and I realized I was on like 11%. So I
Uh
plugged the phone in over by where the pupster's little
oh.
sleeping quarters
Gotcha.
are at.
He keeps yanking on your
So
charging cord. Yeah.
it was me, not him.
Well, at least you owned it. So there you go. Yeah, that's cool. So life happens, and I think that's another thing that I think a lot of us is we're kind of on this bit of a topic, anyways. I think people understand a lot more than they used to. That sometimes life just happens,
Yeah,
and sometimes stuff doesn't work out. And I think there's some people out there that still get really freaked out by that. But most people I know, have been like, well, it could be a lot worse. Look at some of the crap
yeah,
we went through the past 4 or 5 years. So, but no, it's been an interesting time. So,
absolutely,
yes, sir.
absolutely. I was feeling bad for my kids, and then like I said, you have a couple of see them take some of their first trips and their first steps as adults. And you just kind of sit back and you go, well, if you guys can navigate what we just went through and graduate high school and go through college, I think you guys are going to probably be all right and learn to adapt pretty well.
Right. Right. So, yeah, and sounds like they've got some grounding out there, and Papa did good and got him set up with some skills, and I think that's really, as parents, about all you can really do,
Yeah.
And it's really sad to see a lot of the kids that aren't getting a lot of that.
Yeah.
The workforce is sure telling, out there now, and it's just so hard to find quality young people, when it comes to actually wanting to show up and actually take pride in
Yeah.
their work and do
Well,
something
for
other than
instance,
mess around with a cell phone.
my daughter was going to be a cop.
Mm-hmm.
So going into the pandemic, she graduated high school. And then all this crazy stuff happened over the next year or two. And she was like, well, I don't want to be a freaking cop if this is the way things are going to be. That's not
Yeah.
what I wanted to do. I wanted to help people. So she got her associate's degree as a social worker and then went and got her, whatever they call it, her license to be a beautician to cut hair.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Graduated top of her class, and then went to one of the top companies in the city of Austin. And Austin is booming right now. I mean, they're saying Austin's bigger than New York and Chicago right now. So then she went into a market where there's millionaires moving here by the truckloads, and turns out she doesn't just become top of her class. She goes to this new employer and they put her with she becomes someone's apprentice for 6 months. Well, then they find out she's goes above and beyond. So now I saw it wasn't on purpose, but I saw how much she's making. And I was just like, my jaw hit my chest. I didn't know you could charge that much for a haircut and color and all that other good stuff. But it depends on your market,
Yeah.
whatever your market is. I mean, if you're cutting hair in places where they sell $1 million condos, you could probably charge whatever you want,
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but you got to be good. You also
You
have to
do.
be
You've got to
good.
be able to back it up, and
Yeah, and then my son being tech, Austin's a big tech hub right now. So it does kind of make it nice that they chose wisely, what direction to go in too. And I think that makes a big difference because, I mean, I would have loved to have gone in some artsy direction to get a degree, but I don't think it would pay the bills. And I also don't think I'm going to die at 65. I'm probably going to need to work a little bit longer than that.
right. I hear you. Yeah, and the older you get, the more you start thinking about that stuff. As
Yeah.
much as I might have been able to do it for the last 20 or 30 years, it doesn't mean my body's going to let me continue to do it for the next 20 or 30.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and plus, I learned from my dad. My dad did 27 years in the Navy, and then he went to college, and then he went to work for Xerox for 10 years, and then he went to work for Halliburton and went back to Baghdad for 8 years as a housing manager at Camp Anaconda. And then when he came home, he got sick and then passed after that. But the one thing he taught me was is you're not just going to have one career anymore.
Yeah.
Most people are going to have two or three careers, before it's all said and done. So you might as well pick something you have fun doing. I mean, that's why I ended up driving a truck instead of being an accountant.
Yeah.
I just couldn't stand the thought of being in a cubicle.
Right. I hear you. I hear you very much. I mean, I'm kind of on my second career, and right now there's no signs of getting out of it, thank goodness. But
Yeah.
but who
Well,
knows? I
heck, no,
mean,
not if things keep
yeah,
going. And I think I
yeah,
think you're right. I think a lot of people got introduced
hmm
to going out and doing this campground thing, but even living out of the vans. There's a couple of girls I've been watching, and it's funny, you get invested in some of these people on social media and you're like, you need to be careful, young lady. All of a
right,
sudden I find myself being dad, instead of being a consumer of the media. I'm becoming a dad, and I'm like, okay, sorry, you can
yeah,
take care of yourself. I know you're a big girl. My
yeah.
bad.
I know. I have the same thoughts, and you see them out there, and it's like, really, in this world, you're going to go out and do that by yourself, and and unfortunately, there are some not so good stories that happen to some of them out
Yeah.
there. I don't really subscribe to a bunch of them. There's one out there a gal that roams around and is it in a Defender or something like that. And I didn't watch the whole episode, but she did an episode where she was getting harassed. One of the
Yeah.
places that she was stopping, and that would be the one fear, for the ladies in
Yeah.
particular out there. Not that they're not capable of defending themselves. So I think they're just going to be more prone to the jerks out there wanting to cause problems for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but yep. But it's neat to see people out pursuing their passions and exploring, seeing the country. And I know I still got a whole lot of traveling left in me and a whole lot of this country that I want to see. So
Yeah.
looking forward to getting out and doing that too. So not going to make it out to Blade Show Atlanta. It would be nice if I could, but definitely going to try to get to Blade Show West this fall. And was
That's in
almost there.
Utah, right?
What's that?
That's in Utah?
Yeah, I think they're doing it in Salt Lake. At least I know that's where they did it last year. And from what I've
Okay.
heard, it's going to be there again this year. So we were halfway there last year, and life interrupted and cut the trip short and had to turn around. But we almost made it last year. But that's going to be cool to get out there. I'd love to get down to Blade Show, Texas. Maris Adventure Park is down in Texas down there. Speaking of overlanding and off road, and they host some events down there, and I forget how many acres they have. I want to say it was I could be like 4,000 acres that they have just developed, and I'd love to get down there, do Blade Show down there, and then maybe go do a little wheeling through Texas and go check out a few things down there. So
we got a spot just outside of Austin to the northwest. There's a town called Marble Falls, and right between the two on this windy ass road is a place called something Falls, Crystal Falls. But the guy's got I think he's got probably close to 1,000 acres, but he's got all 4 levels. So you got motorcycles, you got ATVs, you got razors, and then you got Jeeps. So he's got all 4 levels of trails, but it's just an amazing place. And if you become a member for like $300 or $400 a year, on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, when it's not open to the public, you can go out and primitive camp and 4-wheel with just the people who are members of the actual
that's cool.
Club. And then they have a campground at the entrance if you want more of the hookups and everything. And then they also have a skeet club up front. So it's redneck heaven.
Oh yeah. I mean, you go out wheeling and shoot skeet. That's awesome. Sign me up.
Yeah.
I might have to make a side trip through Austin. We'll go hang out and check that out.
For sure. And you can rent your bikes and I think you can rent bikes and all the way up to the razors. I don't think they rent Jeeps though.
Yeah. So probably a good thing. That's the problem with Jeeps is the kind of the standard response to Jeep is, what's up with your Jeep? Not much, just another $2,000.
Well, and here's the funny thing that makes that an exclamation point. Right at the entrance when you get off the highway is a warehouse, and it's a Jeep parts warehouse right at the entrance to the place. So he knew, he saw it coming.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's part of it. You're going to go out and do that stuff. You're going to break stuff. I don't care what the make or model is. You do it hard enough and long enough, you're going to break something. So yeah, it's just part of doing that. But
just hope it's on the machine and not on you.
Yeah, right, exactly. So yeah, thank goodness there's not too many horrible accidents that happen with that kind of stuff. But there's been a few. I'm trying to think. Was it Black Bear Pass? I think they've been talking about maybe shutting that one down for pure safety. I mean, there's been in the past few years, a couple of rigs go right off the edge of that sucker. You go off the edge, you're not making it.
Yeah.
And it's that squirrely. So. But no, unfortunately, we're seeing more trails get shut down for political reasons, than we are for misuse or abuse reasons. I know Moab is going through a lot of that right now on some of those classic trails and stuff. But sad to see it. But
yeah. Well, I'll tell you, my brother, we used to have a spot in between where we'd meet up and we'd both drag a trailer full of toys out there. But one of the coolest places that I've done so far is in the Talladega National Forest.
Okay.
The national park maintains the trails, and they have a beautiful setup. And there's like I mean, probably close to 120 miles of trails going through the forest,
Hmm.
but they got everything set up. They did it right. They divided things up. But it was the first place that I went to that would like, it let you know, if you're comfortable with this, go this way. Kind of like skiing, here's your
Hmm.
black diamond trail,
Yep.
here's your bunny,
Right.
So, and then this is everything in between. But I really appreciated that because, my skills weren't as good as my brother's skills were. And usually I followed my brother, and usually I end up pooping my pants a little bit,
Right.
because that's just the way my brother was,
Yeah.
So having somebody who was honest about it and they said, hey, go this way or go that way.
Yeah.
And then that's the other one that I ran into at a few places, to go to some of these places on the weekends. And especially at night, you get people going the wrong way around the trails, and that's where people end up getting all broke up,
Yeah.
you know, people acting silly.
Yep.
So it's kind of nice to see, that's the first national forest I've seen that really did a good job putting off-road together the right way. And like they said, it made all of the rest of their land much more useful because the four-wheelers weren't out tearing that up. They went to where they were supposed to go play.
Yeah. And I'd love to see a lot more of that because, quite honestly, most of the people that I've ever encountered have been out there. They're out to enjoy the outdoors because they enjoy the outdoors. They're doing it in a vehicle or a motorcycle or whatever. Most people aren't out there to cause it harm. Unfortunately, there are a few people. People in particular like to go out on these remote places and go party. So like to leave their trash and all their stuff behind. That give a lot of the off-roaders a bad name. And there's some bad apples, just like there is all the time. But
Yeah.
yeah, whether you're in a national forest or BLM or private property or whatever, stay on the trail. I mean, pick up, leave it better than you found it. Don't leave trash behind, and don't give people a reason to make it an issue, and go enjoy the beautiful resources we have out there to enjoy, so.
Yeah. Well, I know you guys are seeing this in Portland, but like the biggest issue we're having in Austin right now is they totally miscounted the homeless here in Austin. They had us somewhere around 3,000. And whether it's from the effects of the pandemic or whether they just blew the count, we've got close to 10,000 people who are homeless here in the city. And one of the things that is really, really getting bad is a lot of our green space that goes down to the Colorado River, goes down to the lake. A lot of those spaces are now being inhabited by people.
Yeah.
And with those people comes filth. And that filth goes down into the water. And, it creates a big, big problem. And I know, we're not going to have that big a problem in, Southern Oregon, but I know Portland is suffering from some of the same issues,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's
Portland's
just
gotten
gotten to the
really
point.
bad. Yeah. Yeah. And
So,
I lived up there for a long time, and I much prefer a rural setting, but when I lived up there, I was proud to live in Portland because I always felt like it was a very beautiful metropolitan, place, and it was just gorgeous. I go up through there now since all this happened, and it really is kind of criminal what you see to that
yeah,
beautiful big city up there. We don't have it near to the extent that they have it up there, but it's become an issue down here as well, unfortunately.
oh yeah,
And as a matter of fact, we've had some problems. We do a lot of work with law enforcement and got a lot of law enforcement and first responder friends that we deal with through the shop, and talk to a few of them, and it's like they'll keep sending the problem ones down. If they're having some problem people, they just buy them a bus pit ticket and they get them as far as Medford and drop them off. And they're like, oh, good, this guy's back again. It's like, what do you mean he's back again? Well, we just got this call last week and it was the same guy. We got to go box him up and go send him back up
yeah,
there. He's like, he'll be back
yeah,
next week. I was like, well, why is he going back and forth? He's like, he wants to be there. They keep sending him down here. They're like, who's sending him down here? It's like, Portland is. They're just buying him a ticket to get him out of there. Tired of dealing with their crap, So, but no,
yeah,
we've got a little bit of that down here. It's bad as I want to see it, but
yeah.
it's a shame that all that's going on. So
We know some of the other cities do that to Austin, but their excuse actually has a little bit of legs to it, and that is, the state capital is where the services are at. whether you like it or not, the state capital of almost every state, if you're blind, if you're deaf, if you need this or you need that, that's where those services generally come from.
Yeah.
So, in a lot of cases in the old days, they used to send people to the state hospital, and usually the state hospital was also in the state capital. Well, we don't have the state hospital anymore, but people must have gotten the habit of it because we knew for a while that Dallas, specifically Dallas, was sending a lot of people to Austin. But that was their claim when they got called out on it was, well, they're being taken care of better than they would be able to be here because we don't have the resources to take care of them. And it's like touche, touche.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
missing the count by almost three times is, you know, really, really the tough part. And then seeing some of the, like, for instance, there's a green belt that goes down to one of our creeks that runs out of a spring. And when I was younger, and when my nieces and nephews were in high school back in the 90s, early 2000s, when it would rain real heavy, we would go down into the green belt, and then the creek would flow super heavy through the rocks, and you
Hmm.
could jump in the water, and I mean, you'd get all banged up and you'd be all bruised up, but I mean, it was a hoot. It was fun as heck, you know.
Yeah.
Now, if you were to try and go down through there, I mean, there's needles and trash and these big piles of buckets that they've used to, you know, go to the bathroom in that are now just all sealed up, sitting there. Hopefully, nobody opens one because they're terrible.
Right.
But I mean, the whole area. And somebody went down and recently did a survey, and there was 1,000 square foot camp that had been abandoned because it was contaminated. And then they had started a new 1,000 square foot camp just catty corner to it. And that one went right down into the water. So it was just one of those where it's like, man, you know, we got to get this fixed because it's
Yeah.
number one, it's nowhere, no way for people to live, but
Yeah.
it's also going to make it so you can't even go down and enjoy the outdoors, you
Yeah.
know, near
It
the,
sure makes it challenging, doesn't it?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it sure does.
Yeah. When we were kids, we were concerned about blowing out our flip flops because of all the pull tabs.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
off of soda cans and beer cans, you know, and we loved them as little kids. We'd pick them up and we'd, you know, bend them together and make hat bands and necklaces or whatever the heck you'd make out of those things, you know. But yeah, no, it's funny those things got banned because they were a nuisance. I wish they'd ban some of these other pokey things that are, you know,
Yeah,
stabbing you in the foot when you're walking around out there in
for
public.
sure, for sure.
So, but no, crazy times, and it's you know, it's interesting how we sit and we talk about a community and how we've come together. In our cases, as creators, in our story to get here, and how, you know, life's events have caused it. But the neat thing is that, you know, that there's a community to come to, and
Yeah,
you know, it's everybody that talked to, you know, about the whole pocket talk thing and stuff like that. And you and I have talked a little bit about it. It really is. It's a cool story. It's a cool journey, and it's neat that whether it was because we were sitting at home bored, or, you know, I've got this theory as well. A lot of the knife community exists because when we find our passions and we start walking around, and you do this at work and you do this at home, pretty soon it doesn't take long for those people that could give a rat's butt about that. They're just sick and tired of it. And it gives us a place to gravitate to people that
yeah,
understand our strangeness, right? The things we like to flip and sharpen and collect,
yeah, yeah,
you know.
absolutely.
So, but, you
And
know,
and, and I've heard stories, and mine's one of them. And I've heard stories of people who were either spiraling or they were in a dark place or, you know, they were just having a rough time, and whether it was before or since the pandemic, but the community was able to help them,
very
you
much so.
know, lift them up and help them get back, you know, on you know, steady ground a little bit. And you know, not to mention, you know, our friends in the community who have had losses and things like that.
Right.
Even, you know, with Jason Brown, I had just started getting to know Jason Brown, and I was really digging our communications. We had tons of things in common, music, and he was a fan of graffiti like I was. And I mean, we were making these connections, and then boom, just like that, somebody's gone. But then to see the community lift up his wife and his child and
Mm-hmm.
his daughter, and make sure that this little girl is going to have, I guarantee you her college is already funded probably.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the fact that she was only 7 or 8 years old, and then, all the money everybody threw in there and all the fundraisers, um, and that was just so heartwarming, to see. And then the other thing is the two or three people who kind of picked it up and ran with it and championed the whole idea. And
Mm-hmm.
I know there's even one guy who's still responsible for that college fund. And, so now he took the responsibility of being connected to this family for the next 10, 12, 14 years.
Yeah.
And that's a big commitment for a guy
It
who just
is.
decided to do a knife show.
Yeah.
That's all he was going to do was do a knife show. And
Yeah.
now, he's got family. He's absorbed family from this. And recently, there's a guy who, and he was our age, and he lost a wife. And it's one of those things, I can't imagine many things worse, other than maybe a child.
Mm-hmm.
But it was just one of those where the community kind of just grabbed him up and said, "Hey, you know what? We
Yeah.
got you, bro."
Yeah.
And I can't think of many places, and I've been a lot of places. I can't think of many places where I was, embraced by the community the way I've been embraced by this community.
Yeah.
And you know, even if it's just for an hour or two every week or each day, depending on, your needs or whatever. Even sometimes just getting out of whatever life is battering you with, and taking a minute and getting outside and just going, okay, there's my people, there's my,
Right. Right.
that guy's got the next knife I'm going to buy right there,
Right.
Um, I do want to give a shout out, Misty Edgy Blade Works. If you guys are going to Blade Show in Atlanta, um, Scott is going to be in the ballroom at table 36G. And I know that I saw he just finished up another one of the grunts that I think the prototype of the grunt he gifted, or they did a drawing last year on Veterans Day, and Grumpy Grunt won that. So that was the original grunt. So he's made another version of that. I know he's got a couple of tippers. I'm not sure he's going to do an Astral, but I'm telling you, if you're wondering whether or not you want to try the custom game, it's a different level. And I haven't tried a Rosie. I haven't tried some of the other big name $800,000 pocket knives. But I can tell you that this is the most I've ever spent on a pocket knife, but it's worth every cent so far.
That's awesome.
The feel, the action, um, even just looking at the construction, and then the fact that the guy took me on the journey with him and showed me all of the process. I remember one day I got like a 30-second video clip of a big old headed baby in a high chair
Mm-hmm.
playing with this knife. Now, it didn't have an edge on it yet. It didn't even have a spring on it yet. This kid is just flopping this knife in his high chair all over the place. And I was like, after that whole experience, I was like, this is a family affair. He's already got the kids working on the pocket. I mean, it was
Right.
the coolest thing ever. But then seeing, him flick it that first time after he got everything all put together, and, it was just kind of one of those. It's like, that's mine.
That's
That's the
cool.
first one of those that was ever made, and that's mine.
Yeah. That's
So,
cool.
and I've got a custom coming from Fixie, coming from Keith, the knife freak, and I think he's put out 6 or 7 of those, and then he does the Ulus. But
Yeah. Those Ulus
being a
he's doing
hunter,
are cool.
yeah.
Yeah.
But being a hunter, I kind of had a feeling, if you buy a hunting skinning knife from somebody who hunts, actually, you're going to get a really, really good hunting skinning knife, I
Mm-hmm.
think. And we'll wait. The jury's still out on that, but I'm betting it's going to be a pretty
Yeah.
nice little blade.
Well, my guess is you're right, because I mean that's the difference that and I think manufacturers get jumped on because of some of the choices they make on their production knives. We got to remember they're production knives. These things
Yeah.
have to be able to be built in the hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands, whatever the situation is going to be. They have to be repeatable. And people think that the prices have gone up and are out of sight now because of material supply issues and the cost of materials. Could you imagine if everything was unique and custom made to order? If every knife was a Burger King and you could have every single one your way, there wouldn't be very many affordable knives out there, But
Nope.
that's where these small creators, knife makers and stuff like that, generally they're creating, in my opinion, these creations because they're trying to fill a gap on something that they want that doesn't exist.
Yep.
And I think most innovation comes from situations like that. It's like I couldn't find what I wanted, so I had to figure it out.
Yeah.
And they do that. So I think you're very right. So if somebody that designed that is actually designed it because it's what felt good to them, chances are
Yeah.
they've improved it over what a production version might be. And,
Yeah. Yeah.
yep. So,
Yeah.
but it's there was a powder coater that I ran into when I was down in Arizona doing a car show down there selling car care products years and years ago. And he showed me a picture he had in his sign, and it said, "Good, cheap, and fast. Pick any two that you want, but you can never have all three."
That's right.
And boy, isn't that true. And I'm almost every day I get a customer that wants it good, cheap, and fast. And they expect that that's going to happen. And it's just like, we can sit here and pretend all day long that that's going to happen, but it's really not. Because even if people say that they're going to do it, generally you can't do all three. You
That's right.
can't bring that high quality fast unless you have the resources to buy or purchase or hire enough help to do it to that level of quality in that time. So there's always an offsetting factor, and that's always that's 20 years ago and it's always stuck with me, and it applies to more than just business and selling people stuff.
Oh yeah, it applies to wives too.
Yeah, wives and knives and all kinds of stuff, right? Good, cheap, and fast. You've had three.
2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Okay.
Not good, but it's not bad.
Right on, Dennis. That's cool. Oh, that's cool, my man. We're getting a little long in the tooth here, bud. You got any future plans for the channel, or any future knife plans or EDC plans that you wanted to share with everybody before we kind of start to wind this down at all?
Well, until I get done with my nationals in July, and due to this purchase here, probably not going to be seeing a lot of new stuff. But
Yeah.
fortunately, I haven't done any content on most of the stuff that I have, so I'm going to be okay.
Yeah. Nice.
But I do think I am going to just reiterate, my kind of angle is going to be, hey, this is my journey on this first couple 2 or 3 years of collecting. Before that it was kind of ho hum, cut my thumb, had the 110, but since then it's been kind of exciting. So
Yeah.
that part of it, I think I'm going to continue to share. And then I also, this idea that you have for, the talk show,
Mm-hmm.
Pocket Talk, is that what you call it?
Yeah, that's what I'm calling this one. Yeah. Yeah. As far as the
So,
series, yes.
I mean, it's a great idea, and um, I don't know that I'd be a good co-host on a week-to-week basis,
Yeah.
but doing stuff like this, I think, is pretty cool, and it's fun. Get to know you,
Yeah.
and get some exposure out there. With the GP who hasn't found my channel yet,
Right.
and I think once I start getting a little bit more tech savvy. Um, I don't know, maybe once in a while having a guest on or something like that. I got to figure out how to keep my, phone from falling over or the line's over first. And then once we get that figured out, maybe I'll get some super glue over here.
There you go.
But yeah, so that's really my plan. Tuesday night, 10:15 Central Standard Time. I've been going for about an hour. If Sharif's not on after me, I'm going to start making plans to just let it go until people aren't interested in hanging out anymore, and see what happens with it.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll be an hour, maybe it'll be 2 hours. We'll see what happens, and then maybe Sharif decides he's going to start doing his show on the regular after he gets back from Blade Show. I don't know,
Yeah.
but what about you? I mean, you seem to have a lot going on right now. You've got two things. So you're putting out, are you trying to put out something every day? Or
Not
do you
necess-
have
not
anything set?
Yeah, not necessarily so much. I mean, I I am trying to get kind of trying to get as much of the friction out of the setup as I can, in the sense that I'm always going to fight time, and until I retire, till sell the business or something like that. I mean, it's that's going to dominate my time as much as I can. So I'm trying to be able to come in and create as much content as I can when I get an evening here and there, to sit down and maybe record 2 or 3 or 4 videos. These pocket talks, we're running anywhere between about 2:15 and we're going to probably maybe even bump up close to 3 hours on this one, right? The nice thing about this is aside from the upload times and stuff like that, because these are such big files, you just got to think several days ahead of time to get them edited and get them up there. These are proving to be pretty easy content, really, because it would just you and I just had to coordinate our schedules to talk for this long, right?
Yeah.
It's amazing how even some of the short 5, 10, 15 minute videos can take just as long or sometimes longer to put out as these longer form ones do. But no, it's just mainly here recently I've been getting more out there because I've had a little bit more time. Last month in my work life was just incredibly busy, more than normal, and was just having a hard time getting it. I've got, I don't know, a whole table full of stuff back here. And everything is stacked up over. That's all stuff that even before the channel started, and since the channel started, I've just been kind of collecting up in one form or another, or setting aside out of the collection stuff that I just need to sit down and do it. And I'm finally able to sit down and do maybe 2 or 3 at a sitting now, and can schedule some stuff out a little bit more. And I'm hoping to get in front of it a little bit and have a little bit more regular. I don't have a recipe. The lives every Thursday night, those are a staple at this point. I hope the pocket talks stick around. It's looking like they will. The feedback has been wonderful, and
Yeah.
to the point of even some people reaching out to say, "Can we do one together?" It's like, really? Okay, yeah.
Well, to be
But
honest with you, rewatching them was just as enjoyable as the first time, because the first time I was also trying to pay attention to the chat, so I missed some stuff. So
mhm.
there was some stuff I got the second time that I didn't get the first time.
Yeah, yeah, and I think anybody that's done lives, knows that when you're doing this and you're trying to interact with the live, um, it's hard to. You're missing so much stuff, and I've talked to Zach and JB and some other people, and they say, yeah, we still miss a lot too of the conversation, and that's what's nice about this is we're one on one. We can focus on each other, and so there's not that distraction. But I'll promise you this, on the other pocket talks that I've recorded, and I'll guarantee you it's going to happen on this. Even though there's not going to be a lot editing on here, I watch these things from beginning to end to make sure there's no sound issues, no video issues, anything that doesn't need to be, and make sure nothing's going to go out there that either you or I don't want out there, right? And I
Yeah.
found myself every time I review that, usually I've got 2 monitors. I'll usually have that playing because they're a couple hours. And I'll usually try to work on something over here and kind of listen and watch out of the corner of my eye. And I find myself, I get into it. I was there as part of the find myself getting drawn into the conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, and that's cool. And I think that when we get drawn back into our own conversations that we just had, it's like, all right, yeah, sign me up. So yeah, a lot more of this. Got some stuff coming up. You're going to see a lot more content coming up. Some of it
Awesome.
Some of it you're going to see the Oregon Truck and Auto Authority YouTube channel fire up here in upcoming weeks and months. It's basically
Cool.
been non-existent, aside from housing some television commercials that we needed a place to have. But there's going to be some content coming up that'll be more on that. There's going to be crossover because my personal interest in here blends. So there'll be some stuff that's made specifically just for the pocket razors and the pocket talk stuff. Some of that, and there's going to be some crossovers. But because of the business and some of that content, it's going to lead to some cool new stuff coming up, and the vehicle stuff. But even with the vehicle stuff set aside, just some of the trips and some of the camping and stuff like that, that's going to provide opportunity to talk about some other stuff that maybe isn't always appropriate to do at home at a desk setup. Get outside a little bit.
Yeah.
um, I really want to take the pocket talk, and I mentioned this several times, and I've always wanted to. I want to do campfire chats, campfire talks, whatever they become. And Zach and I have talked about it a little bit. JB and I talked about it in our interview, and I talked about it on the live last night. I think I'm gonna be doing an Overland Expo event at the end of June up in Bend, Oregon, up in that area. Going to be there camping out all weekend. There's going to be some knife manufacturers there. There's going to be some other people, from the industry up there as vendors up there. And I think we're going to try to do a meetup, up there. And
Cool.
if people want to come and enjoy the main event and stay for the weekend and camp out, there's on-site camping that we can do. Or if they just want to show up, and we'll try to have a time set aside in the evening or evenings, or maybe even during the day a little bit, and try to do some knife community meetup stuff, whether it's inside of the event or just outside of the event or whatever. We're gonna try that, and it's a nice centralized place here for us in Oregon. Some of the Washington folks, it's not so far that they can't get there. Some of the Northern California folks. So I think we're going to try it. Meetups are a great way to get out, handle stuff, see stuff, meet people, connect with the community. So a lot of that kind of stuff coming up, but
Cool.
but no, right now I'm just trying to get, a live every week for sure, one or two other pieces of content. I have been trying to do a lot more on my Instagram. There's almost 1,000 followers there. And it's like, I'm trying to, come on, people, come on over to the YouTube channel. You know how it is. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm doing this now. Now you want everybody to come and hang out and help you blow it up. It's tough, to
Well,
get
I was
subscribers and stuff,
I was trying to get people to come over, and then somebody hit me up in the messages, and they were like, "Dude, if you put a link on your Instagram that takes people to your YouTube, you get a lot more people who will come over." And I
Yeah.
was like, "Hey, that's a good idea. How do
Yeah.
I do that?"
Yeah.
So then I had somebody give me the tutorial, right? And I'm like, "All right,
Yeah.
thanks, man.
There you go. Well,
Appreciate you, brother."
yeah, right. And I got that same advice a few weeks ago, and it was like, so yeah, give me a shout when we're not doing this, and I can tell you how to get the link on there. It may not be pretty, it may not be 100% correct, but yeah, and that's been helping a little bit, because like we talked about, and what do we had? I think I had your Instagram open here a second ago. You've got a fair amount of followers on your Instagram, if I remember right, as
Yeah, that
well.
was part of the plan. That was part of the plan was is I was going to get a
Yeah,
thousand, and then I was going to start the YouTube. So then I did a couple of shorts, and then I just kind of got lost in some other stuff and
yeah,
forgot all about it. Like I said, until I started working with Jesse James at
yeah,
James, and
yeah. You're
came
just
back around full circle.
Yeah, you're just shy of 12,000 or 1,200 followers on your Instagram.
Yeah,
So, and that's kind of what I've been trying to work on too. Is I think I'm just under 1,000 on mine, and it's like just trying to convert and just kind of make people aware, that hey, there's action going on over here too. It's not just about the
yeah,
pocket checks and the random posts over here. So, I've been doing a lot more of that, and that's been fun too because it's given me a reason to focus on doing the pocket checks, and posting them on Instagram. I've always liked them. I've always liked that other people have done them. I've done a few here and there throughout the years on the way, but I was never consistent with them. But the more
hmm
of them that I've done, and it also gives me a chance to kind of bring my photography, that hasn't really been talked about. But I mean, I love photography and stuff like that. It gives me a chance to kind of do that a little bit more and share that. And so I have been trying to the last week or two, trying to get a post out there with a carry, at least once a day. I think I missed yesterday. Well, I think was the only day I missed this week, but life just wasn't going to happen. But no,
Yeah.
and I think we're just working on a lot of the same stuff, and
Yeah.
and I mean, you started a few weeks before I did, but yeah, just trying to get people to show up and come talk to us
Yeah.
and hang out and subscribe to our channels. Which this is a perfect time, guys. We'll just bring it up right now. If you guys have made it this far in the video, give Sharp Guy, let me make sure I get this right. Sharp Guy ATX. Give Sharp Guy ATX over on Instagram and on YouTube. Get over there, follow him on both places. Go subscribe to his YouTube channel, people. Just do it. You're gonna like it. You made it this far. You're in love with the guy now. If you made it this
Yeah.
far, you have to be.
What's
And crush that bell. Get that notification, because even when you got it on there, and YouTube isn't necessarily always going to get you those messages, but
That's
yeah,
right.
it really does help. And yeah, hit him up, man. Show him some love. Come join us in his Tuesday night lives. I haven't been real good about making it through all of them, but I'm trying to carve out enough time on Tuesday nights so we can sit through them more and more. So, but
We do them late because it's not for children. You
right.
necessarily a little bit from time to time. You
I
know.
hear you. I hear you.
But I'll tell
So,
you, one of the things I can give you is that everything that I've been seeing lately has been very entertaining, and one of the things that I've pulled out of it is quite similar to, your first two guests on Pocket Talk, Zach and JB. They both just have something about them that just puts off an air of, um, what's the best way to say it?
I don't know. You got yourself in a corner now, dude. I don't know how to help you right
No,
now.
no, no. I had it, but now I'm starting to show my 57-year-old brain a little bit.
I
But the
subscribe to
positivity,
that.
that's what I was looking for. The positivity is something that I really enjoy when I'm watching a show, and you don't have to worry about all the, the down talk and blah blah blah, and the current events and everything like that. It stays on kind of a good flow, a good topic, and even when we go off topic, it's still generally very positive. And that's one of the things I've noticed that's kind of kept me going with a lot of yours is the fact that it is so positive. So keep on doing that, man. That
Oh,
that that's very cool.
thank you very
I
much.
wish you much success,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I appreciate you having me on, man. It's
I
been fun.
appreciate you being here, Dennis, and spending this time. And I think we just set a new record. I don't think we're going to quite get to 3 hours. We're getting pretty close here. But thank you for taking that time, sharing your story. And I look forward to continuing to spend more time on your channel and get to know you better. And
Yes,
at
sir.
some point, let's circle back and do a follow up on this. And I'll guarantee you, just because we're shutting her down just shy of 3 hours doesn't mean we don't have another 3 hours of story time in us.
I guarantee you we
So
do.
awesome.
And I was going
Well,
to say the same thing. Till next time.
right on, right on, right on. Well, everybody, we're going to get out of here for this episode of Pocket Talk with Sharp Guy ATX. And Dennis, thank you so much. And looking forward to what your channel and your story and your adventure has in store for us. And everybody, like we've just been talking about, the community's full of it. Like Brother Zach likes to say, hashtag DSKFS, man. Do something kind for somebody. Show some love out there. Show some support. And till next time, everybody, we're going to give you the peace out. And we'll see you next time. Thank you very much, Dennis. Take care, my man.